One sunny day, where the sky is clear with almost no clouds, smoke is coming from some building. There are policemen everywhere. One of them reports that the criminals are surrounded, so let them immediately lower their weapons and release. Here he is interrupted by the criminal himself, telling them to shut up and swearing at them. A masked criminal with a gun in his hands is holding a guy who is very scared and asking for help. There are a lot of criminals, all of them in masks. Next to them, people are sitting on the floor, trembling in fear. They all also covered their faces so as not to see anything. He is still shouting that if they take another step, he will shoot all the people. One of the policemen swears and asks when that guy is coming. And anyway, these terrible heroes. The other stops him, calling him by the name of Hawk. He does not understand and asks what happened. He quietly, turning his head straight, asks him to look back, exactly back. Behind them stood a man with long hair gathered in ponytails. His temples are shaved, his eyebrows are pierced. He himself is wearing a light suit over a black turtleneck. His name is Jade. One of the policemen awkwardly asks if he has already arrived. Jade says he doesn't need all these manners because he's heard their gossip behind his back. He goes forward and says that it's time for him to join the fight. He yawns. A certain force appears around him, similar to an electric current. The next moment he disappears from the place. He finds himself right in front of that criminal at the window who shouted that he would kill people. The criminal did not understand what and where he came from. He haltingly tells Jade to stand where he stands, otherwise people's lives. Jade smiles and asks what kind of people he's talking about. Suddenly, a person who was held captive by a criminal has an electric current flashing over his head. Jade asks if he's really talking about it. The criminal does not understand and looks at his prisoner, and sees that he is already dead. He is covered in blood. Jade says with a smile how terrible people like him are after killing an innocent citizen. The criminal immediately starts screaming and raises his weapon and shoots. Jade strikes the criminal's face with her palm, and half of his face simply evaporates, disappears along with half of the mask where Jade's palm touched. The rest of the criminals did not even have time to react. Jade attracts another criminal to her at high speed, wraps her forearm around his neck and strangles him, taking away his weapon and getting rid of the cartridges. But then he raises his weapon towards people and says that he shot them, not him, and just shoots at people. People twitch from every shot, blood flows from their wounds. Then he takes the criminal's head in one fell swoop. He turns to the rest of the criminals and says that he has finished with the captured people. Then now isn't it time for him to do justice? He walks confidently. A huge amount of this force comes from him in the form of an electric current. He abruptly passes through these criminals, and thus all enemies die. Inside the building, everything becomes bright and light blue. A girl in a red jacket is standing on the roof by the cliff and asks if it's him. A guy in classic clothes sitting on a chair behind her confirms that it is him, and if she kills him, then her parents' work can be considered finished. The girl asks when she asked to help her, and that it has been a long time since she stopped needing his help. The guy gloomily only agrees, and in his head declares that if this is true, then let her prove it to her. The girl jumps down from the roof, confidently controlling her body and simultaneously rubbing her feet against the wall to adjust the speed of the fall. Next comes a story about the basic principle of heroes. If you choose between a large and a small number of people, they will always save more. However, at some point this rule has undergone some changes. In order to save the majority, it became obvious to sacrifice the minority. Even if the dead appeared on the mission, the heroes did not bear any responsibility for it. It doesn't matter if it was an accident or a simple hobby, but people who are no different from villains wore masks called heroes. Jade gets out of an expensive car that was speeding earlier at high speed. A guy in a suit helps him out by opening the door for him. There are girls next to him, whom he will put his arm around. So here comes the question. If the villains, similar to the terrible ones, are exterminated by heroes, then who will deal with the terrible heroes? The girl who came down from the roof approaches a huge building on which the word anarchist is written, approaches the guard, who drives her away, waving his hand in front of her. The girl abruptly takes his hand, wrings it and throws it into a deflection. He falls on his face. The other workers notice it and attacks her, protecting their own. She abruptly takes off her top sportswear and deftly binds the attacker. That's right, if no one will deal with the terrible heroes, then she will do it and take the initiative into her own hands. She kicks the third attacker at her with a knife right in the face, and then finishes him off with her sports jacket. She will become the blade that will cut all their throats. She proudly leaves the place, putting on her outerwear. Meanwhile, Jade enthusiastically says that if you call everyone by name, there will be no end to them. But there were quite a lot of heroes whose face he would not like to see. Anyway, the most important thing is that they all died and are buried in the ground. Then he asks the girl in the red dress and with a glass in her hand if she even understands what he is talking about. He says that of all of them, he is the only one left alive. The girl is wary and turns back. Jade frowns and also notices someone's presence and says that an uninvited guest at such a time. Behind them is the same girl who easily dealt with the guards. He stands up abruptly and strikes, using his strength, at this girl. There he manages to dodge. All the other girls, who are enjoying their time, leave the room in a panic with screams. Jade asks the girl who covered herself with her forearms how she dared to interrupt his fun. He then looks closely and says that she is still a child. The girl with a smile tells him that he is not as fast as the rumors say about him. Jade doesn't understand what she's talking about at first, and then he lifts up and looks at his hand, which is riddled with table knives and forks. He squeezes his hand, begins to frown and angrily says that this girl is impudent. He asks where she came from. Is it really from some organization that doesn't even have a name, or is she from the Union of Villains? He begins to activate his electric current power and says that, although he doesn't care where she came from, because he will still defeat her in 2 counts. The girl in some memories leans towards someone. The hand lying on the floor is all blood and lifeless. A corpse with long hair. The girl brought it closer to her and put it on her lap. It's dark and overcast outside. The sounds of wheels are made. The girl turns her head to the sound. A guy who is sitting in a wheelchair, holding an object in his hands, asks the girl if she wants revenge. The guy has wrinkles on his face, white hair with a length below the ears. He is dressed in a classic suit, similar to the outfits of the Middle Ages. He holds in his hand a frame with a photo of that girl and the corpse. The girl answers him that, if possible, then yes, she wants revenge. The man says that as among a huge number of heroes, she will find the one who killed her that is, her older sister. The girl gets up from her seat and confidently replies that she will kill and kill. She repeats this unfortunate word several times, and thus she will find the culprit. Returning to the present, the girl attacks Jade. A blade comes out of her sleeve abruptly. She easily snatches it in her hands and attacks Jade. He dodges and grabs this knife with 2 fingers. He uses force. The next second the knife breaks into small pieces. Jade asks what kind of toy it is, and then attacks her with her fist in response. She defends herself again by exposing her forearms to her face. Abruptly she swings, taking her arm further than her shoulders, using her elbow. Jade catches her elbow with one hand, and with the other hand prepares for a retaliatory blow. He hits her right in the face with his fist that she just flies back, hitting the bar counters. It hits the wall, creating cracks in it. Jade is angry. He penetrates the table with his bare fingers, breaking a piece of it and throws it directly at the girl still lying against the wall, simultaneously shouting that she amuse him. The girl reflects these pieces of the table with a bar stool. Jade approaches her and attacks with her fist. She deflects the blow, dodging her head to the side. She abruptly picks up a nearby fire extinguisher and hits Jade, who reflects it with his hand. Suddenly the fire extinguisher explodes and now the room is filled with white foam and smoke. Jade doesn't see anything. He covers his mouth with his forearm and looks around. While he is looking in one direction, a girl abruptly comes out from the other side and kicks Jade. She already thought she had hit him, but suddenly he just disappears. He is standing right behind her and asks what she believes that she is acting so self-confident. She reacts quickly, turns to him and kicks again. He dodges and strikes back with his fist from below to her jaw. She falls on her back right in front of him. He bends down and swings his fist again, asking if she really thought that she was the only one of the villains who pull such stupid tricks. After the words, he slaps her in the face. He swings again, at the same time saying that he just wiped out all these people who attacked him. He stops, regaining his breath. He clenches his bloody fist and says that this is the only way no one will hear, so let her die on this. He activates his power and pulls his hand towards her. Suddenly, he abruptly begins to feel different. The next second he finds himself in another dimension, where he is standing under the blade, with chains on his hands and around his neck. He does not understand what it is and how it suddenly happened. He returns to reality covered in sweat and sees how his reaching hand is held tightly by a girl lying on the floor. Her eyes are red and they burn brightly. He gets scared and abruptly walks away, wondering what happened, what kind of strange feeling it is. She gets up, spits out blood and says that after his blows she thinks she understood in general terms how to use the gift. That is, her ability. She begins to stare at him with her bright red eyes. He backs away and realizes that he has to get out right now, but then the girl just walks past him, touching his neck area with her hand. The next second Jade is already without part of her neck and shoulders. He didn't understand what happened at first, but as soon as he started bleeding, he clutches his shoulder and starts screaming in pain. The girl is watching him. Jade swears and asks if she was just playing with him all this time. The girl asks, and what is he asking? Is it really possible for him? But not for her. Jade screams furiously that she will tear her to pieces and attacks her. She just hits him on the jaw, he just falls. The girl asks how strong he is. If all the heroes are the same as him, then it won't be so insulting to destroy them. He lies on the floor and realizes that his body does not obey him. Is he really going to die like this, so insignificant? Suddenly, unknown hands of black color slide over his body. A voice is heard asking, after all, he has killed many, now it is his turn to die. Several people in suits and with bags on their heads are reaching out to him. He stands up abruptly, held by these hands. He tells himself not to talk nonsense and runs away from these hands. He still says not to talk nonsense and that he still has a chance. He stretches out his hand to the ceiling and again finds himself in reality, where the girl just put her palm on his face. The girl calls him crazy and tells him to be born human in the next life. After these words, she presses his face to the floor. Blood gushes from his mouth. She looks at him and sees that the floor has cracked from his head, from which blood is also flowing. The man in the wheelchair says that nothing can be brought back, and that the heroes have started hunting her like a pack of dogs, and some of them can be so strong that she will feel regret for putting on a par with Jade. Then he asks if she has the determination. The girl replies that if she was scared, she wouldn't even start. There are memories of the day they met. He hands her a sword. She is a hero killer. She kills all those who block her way to a single one, and generally evil people don't care about this. She stands with this broken sword among the numerous corpses that have become so because of her. This building was blocked by the police. Forensic experts examine Jade's corpse. Someone takes something for a sample. Someone takes pictures. Another writes down some conclusions on paper. Two not in police uniform discuss whether one heard that another was approved to replace Jade. The other is outraged, because even his body was not removed yet. He replies that everything was done quickly from the beginning. Another says that he doesn't know anything else, but I would like a more adequate frame to come in his place. The other replies that that's what he's talking about. The door opens. Everything is covered in blood. Some red-haired man crawls on all fours to Jade's corpse, sniffing his blood. He asks the corpse what he just said. He grabs the dead Jade by the clothes and calls him by name, after which he asks who did this to him, and then listens to the corpse, nodding and nodding that he understands everything, although the corpse does not say anything. He turns sharply to the employees and asks if this is true. Everyone looks in fear and surprise as this red-haired man, taking the corpse by the hair, drags it after him. He simultaneously tells Jade not to worry and that he will avenge him. He rubs his face with his palm and then licks the area stained with blood. He suddenly becomes aware of something. He vaguely sees the silhouette of the girl who attacked Jade, and then he sees her face and her red eyes clearly and clearly. A red-haired man with different eyes, that is, one pupil is blue, the other is green, in a frenzy says out loud that she got caught. This man who has gone mad is called Seiko. Liquid drops repeatedly fall on the floor, making it wet. The girl, having collected her hair, trains. She stands on her hands, while holding her whole body in a horizontal position. Then she gently and smoothly lifts her legs, already assuming an upright position. Sweat runs down her face, so her muscles are very clearly visible, especially her arms, biceps and triceps. On TV, they are actively discussing something at an interview. There are several bottles of water next to the gadget. A clan of heroes is an organization that contains most of the heroes, and a community authorized to give them orders. A long time ago, after defeating the villains, the heroes spent a lot of time to strengthen their system of domination. Dozens of years have passed since that moment. It is no exaggeration to say that the whole world has become controlled by the clan. The girl is taking a shower. It's strange for her that it's been a week since she killed Jade, but there is no news about it in the media, as if nothing had happened. She thinks maybe they don't want to show themselves from a weak side, or they just don't care about their consumables. She gets out of the shower, grabs a towel and dries off. He continues to reflect that they don't care about her in the same way as her sister. She takes the stamp from the nightstand and crosses out Jade's photo. She doesn't care if she cuts off all their arms and legs. They can't pretend they don't know anything either. She looks up at the wall, which is filled with various photographs and logical lines. It doesn't matter to her who comes for her, because she's ready. She leaves after carefully examining the wall and planning the next murder. It is a sunny day without a single cloud. A middle-aged man with glasses is standing in a bar and wiping dishes with napkins. A girl comes in there. She's dressed in a white blouse and a black skirt, like a schoolgirl. The bartender calls her EHWA and says she came early today. She just agrees. She comes into the kitchen, puts on an apron and, calling him the master, says that it seems they still have no guests, although she, who works here, likes it. The master asks why all of a sudden. Well, whatever it was, today they took one table. She emotionlessly replies that it's incredible. The master asks if she is a robot, and then he says he's going to check out the warehouse, and then he'll come back. She doesn't answer anything. In the room, that crazy man with red hair and different eyes is sitting at a table reading a newspaper. He holds the newspaper incorrectly. He smiles satisfactorily, looking at EHWA. And HWA looks up and sees that the red-haired guy is aiming a gun at the departing master. Ginger lowers his head back, showing his face and pulling her tongue. She reacts quickly. As soon as there was a shot, she turns out to be with this man and puts a knife to his neck. Unexpectedly, Ginger says in the feminine gender that she looked in just to say hello, so let HWA be easier. Seiko tells her that her face is too calm for the one who disturbed the hive, and HWA doesn't react in any way and asks if Seiko is from the clan. She thinks that in addition to restraint, she is also very good at assessing the situation. Moreover, it was just a gift from Jade, a gift stealing gifts. She takes the cup and finishes her drink. She puts the cup back on the plate and asks to remove this knife from her. Then she hands her a piece of paper and says that they will meet tomorrow at the marked place without any interference. Just the two of them. The master comes up and asks what happened. She replies that nothing happened and that everything is fine. She crumpled this piece of paper on which the address of the meeting was written. There is a sign hanging by the grate that this is a restricted area, and that outsiders are not allowed to enter there. And there is also a separate warning that this place is a past battlefield. Buildings are destroyed, asphalt with huge pits, everything is gray and gloomy. Along this road goes HVA in the same sportswear. She stops abruptly by feeling and notices that she has been targeted. She looks directly at Seiko, who is smiling on the roof and says she has a good feeling. She pulls the trigger, the sniper shoots straight at EHWA. She deftly dodges the bullet that it passes her by a few centimeters away. Seiko loads again and continues to shoot. An HWA tears off the side mirror of a standing car and hides at the air conditioners in the corner. She uses a mirror to see buildings better. She reflects that, judging by the flight path, she is in that building. The distance is about 1,800 meters. The bullet passes through the mirror that HWA was holding, breaking it to pieces. From her pocket she pulls out some material with small metal balls. She thinks that's enough. She starts twisting this material, holding the laces, and thinks that she gets into it with this. This thing forms this blue energy and abruptly throws it at Seiko. Seiko manages to dodge. These balls with the material destroyed part of the wall that covered Seiko. She says that, of course, this is the only way it will be fun, because such power is only from one iron bead. She is a monster, according to Seiko. An HVA is in a semi-sitting position, surrounded by this electricity. Seiko sees this and says, really, she will give her such a clan? Of course not. She picks up her weapon again, takes aim, but can't find her in the direction. She playfully asks, well, where did she hide? Suddenly he hears a sound and turns his head, not understanding where it comes from. The sounds come from the stairs. She wonders if everything is serious. Meanwhile, an HWA jumps easily, overcomes the stairs, and finally finds himself next to Seiko. Seiko already pulls out a shotgun and aims at EHWA. She manages to come close and removes this weapon with a blow. Seiko shoots, but also HVA blows change the direction of the bullet. Then Seiko pulls out a regular pistol from her pocket, but does not have time to shoot, as HWA simply snatches it from Seiko and divides it into parts. Seiko does not have time to react, as HWA just knocks Seiko with her forehead that she backs away and leans against the wall near the roof cliff. She tries to pull out something else, but realizes that the knife is from EHWA, who says something about hell. Seiko asks again. She swings and tells her to go to hell. And HWA repeats his words so that Seiko goes to hell and attacks her with a knife. Seiko defends herself with her hands. The pupil in HVA begins to shift. She sees someone's hands coming out of the walls in order to grab her, but she scratches these hands with this knife. As a result, the whole human body comes out of the wall with a jump. He reaches out with one hand to her. He himself is wearing a purple hoodie, and HWA brandishes her knife in front of him. In parallel, she reflects that this person has a gift that allows him to pass through material objects, and that it looks like his flesh is not amenable to passage. She grabs his arm and throws him by the shoulder into a deflection. He falls, but immediately gets up, and HWA kicks him in the stomach. He barely stands, holding himself with the friction of his foot. He takes off his hood. You can see that his sides are shaved off, and all his hair is dyed red. He is wearing a mask that looks more like a muzzle. His name is Viper. NHWA asks Seiko if she didn't offer to meet just the two of us. She playfully asks if she really said that, and then says that they will let go of this moment, and that she doesn't use Jade's gift because she simply can't use it. NHWA ignores her provocations and attacks Viper, who pushes his hand to the side and HWA, making a lock. Meanwhile, Seiko rubs her hands and says that the Viper has limitations regarding the amount or time of use. She looks at her watch, but anyway, the Viper who stands in front of an HWA, unlike Seiko herself, is not a miss in battle. An HWA attacks with her fist right in Viper's face, but he deftly and sharply catches her hand and lowers it down. Seiko says that, therefore, if she has nothing else to show, then she will die today. But unexpectedly, HWA also moves in a split second and is behind Viper, which he did not expect. And HWA jumps off the roof, disappearing in a short period of time. Seiko wonders if she really doesn't care about other gifts. Perhaps the condition for activating the gift is physical contact. Both Seiko and Viper look after her in surprise. Viper tells Seiko that they don't have time to stand still. If they want to catch up with her, then they need to go right now. Then he asks if Seiko didn't tell the clan anything because of this and called him. She replies that this is so, but she has such a bad feeling. He asks what she is talking about. She turns to face him and says that nothing, and it's good that she took him with her, so they will now continue their hunt. An HWA hid in one of the abandoned buildings. She wonders if she has undergone induction, and that it is naive on her part. She cannot believe that Seiko has brought a partner with her. Moreover, the Viper guy is quite strong, and it is difficult to get used to the type of his gift in a short time. The worst compatibility of the Viper gift with her abilities. She then decides to start with Seiko. She takes the knife and looks at herself in the mirror. While those two are looking for her, Viper suddenly feels something. The next moment he is already walking quickly to one of the buildings, leaving Seiko alone. He goes to the shattered glass, takes a piece and examines it. An MK appears from the wall, from where the HVA also comes out. Viper himself didn't notice it, and after he realized it, he immediately called Seiko. An HWA runs to her, and she prepares a weapon and aims at her. She makes several shots, and HWA easily reflects them all with her knife. As soon as the shots end, she throws this knife with a twist. The knife plunges into Seiko's shoulder. She loses her vigilance from the pain and stops shooting. An HWA runs up to her and scratches her neck with another knife and is disappointed that it turned out to be shallow. Then she grabs the knife tighter to stab it deeper, but she doesn't succeed, because a Viper appears behind her and kicks her in the face that she flies off the asphalt to the curb. An HWA did not have time to get up, as a Viper appears behind her, who abruptly grabs her by the neck and announces to her that this is the end. Her eyes begin to roll up. She is slowly already losing consciousness. Some girl from above is watching the situation and asks the person if they really have a need to face the clan now and save that girl. She doesn't understand. The man replies that, as they say, the more cards they can use, the better, and besides, that guy is an excellent thing. This is being said by a man with a huge scar on his face. Suddenly, an HWA raises her hand and pokes her finger into Viper's eye. He intercepts her hand while he was dealing with his eye. She pushed off her legs and jumped out of Viper's trap. While he was rubbing his eye, an HWA kicks him with a jump. He manages to step back, thereby dodging the blow. Suddenly, bullets pass through the Viper's body, and HVA does not have time to completely dodge, and the bullets hit her on the side of her stomach. Seiko leaves the scene with a loud laugh. He runs far enough away. An HVA departs from the Viper. From the shelter, Seiko throws a grenade and shouts that HVA got caught. Everything explodes. Everything is on fire. However, HVA managed to dodge. Nothing is visible among the smoke. She stops squatting. Suddenly a Viper comes out of the smoke and hits her in the face with his foot. He does not fly far away and falls on his back. Viper approaches her and talks about her ferocity. He thinks he understood why Jade lost to her, because she is dangerous, and will become even more dangerous in the future. He takes her by the neck and lifts her up, and HWA squeezes his hands. Viper praises the gods that he can kill her today. But suddenly he notices someone's presence. He turns his head and sees a huge man. He didn't even have time to ask who he was, as that person simply beheaded Viper. The dead body first falls to its knees, then drops the whole body. An HWA fell on the asphalt. She lost consciousness and now lies with her eyes closed. Behind this huge man, a cute girl with 2 ponytails appears. Her hair and eyes are golden. She asks, well, who is it in the end? Seiko spies on them from hiding. Then she wipes her face, Then someone answers the girl's question that it is, of course, a gang of villains. They also have a guy with golden hair and a scar from the neck to half of his face. Someone talks about the condition and HVA. Her breathing is stable, her pulse is also normal, the strength of her bones is very high. This is a feature of gift users. From the voice, and HWA slowly wakes up. She opens her eyes and hears a man in a white coat saying that the bullet wounds seem to have healed too, and Sinclair changed her clothes. He says to himself that it would be good to leave the dietary supplements, but where did he put them? And then comes back with a bunch of medicines and jars, saying that he found everything. He himself is wearing a gas mask. He turns around and sees that the bed is already empty, and HVA has disappeared. Then he notices a small knife at his back. He tells her that she, standing behind his back, wants to stick a knife into him, and that he prefers to cut horizontally with the blade. Then he turns to her and happily says that if he's not lucky, he can hit her in the ribs. And HWA asks who he is and where she is, still without removing the knife. He raises his finger up and asks if she has heard about the Nameless ones. She asks again what it is. He says that a very long time ago there was a war between the clan of heroes and the association of villains. In general, you can think that they are survivors of that war, remnants of villains, but, in fact, none of them participated in that war. He introduces himself. His name is Vector. He is a doctor among the Nameless, so isn't she too rude to her savior? And then whispers that, to tell the truth, he didn't do anything. And HWA removes the knife. The door opens and a cute girl with golden eyes comes in with a basket of apples and asks if she has already woken up, and says that Brother Angel is calling, so he asks everyone to go together. They walk down a dark corridor, and HWA eats an apple that the girl brought. This girl says in HWA that she is quite calm, but she could have put poison in there, and HWA replies that poisons are bad for her. Then this girl goes ahead and asks where the tail of that apple is, and HWA replies that she ate it. The girl is surprised at first, and then says that HVA is funny too, and HWA thinks that in order to use the gift, she maintained the calorie content. Perhaps they are leading her to their partners, so she decides that she needs to act now. She looks at the Vector and thinks that this guy does not look like a fighter, so he will be able to suppress him in a few seconds. Then she looks at the girl and thinks that the problem is just in her. She wonders if she will be able to knock her out. What should she do? The girl tells the HWA that it's too late because they came. She opens the door, says that she is welcome, and that this is the lair of the Nameless. Inside are just that huge man and the guy with the scar. The girl introduces herself and says that her name is Rachel Sinclair, and that huge man in the body is John Nace, and the leader is the cute brother Anjan standing next to her. And HWA immediately notices that Anjan looks dangerous. Meanwhile, in the clan of heroes in the 17th branch, Seiko is told that she is stupid because she left Viper to die. She replies that there was no other choice, because the enemies are very strong. A man standing next to her smokes and says that Viper was a guy with a promising future. He invested so much effort to cultivate his abilities, so this time Seiko will be reprimanded. Seiko says that's why she asks him to do at least something, unless with his strength it won't work. He replies that the head of the branch is not responsible for such work, although he liked it better when he was on the battlefield. He asks her if she knows who the attacker was. She replies that he will be shocked if he hears. He already asks to say, after which she briefly calls the name of Ingen. The man thinks about this name and thinks that he has definitely heard it somewhere. When he realized who it was about, he stopped smoking. He says that this can't be, and then asks Seiko if she is really talking about a smiling guy. She shows a demonstrative smile and replies that everything is correct. The man takes his head and swears. He turns sharply in the opposite direction and hurriedly leaves. Seiko asks where he's going. He calls her crazy and asks why she just said that now, then tells her to do her job already. An emergency situation is being declared. Right now it will be necessary to call all the heroes of the branch, because the smiling guy has returned. In the den of the Nameless, Anjan says he doesn't need useless words and asks who will do it. Rachel happily stretches out her hand and says that she will do it. She takes out something, opens the case, inside of which is a huge knife, similar to an axe. She says that in fact, she was just waiting for this. And HWA realizes that something is going to happen now. Rachel turns sharply to her and attacks her with her weapon, and HWA manages to dodge. She does not stop attacking with a loud and bubbly laugh. Suddenly HWA grabs the non-sharp end of the knife, that is, the holder, and throws this girl back with the help of the weapon. And HWA kicks the girl on the arm, that the weapon just flies off her hands, and then she strikes already in the stomach. And then with her knee right in the face, pinning Rachel to the wall, that everything starts to crack. Suddenly she starts laughing. Blood flows from her nose. She holds out her hand and admits defeat, saying that she lost. And HWA thinks about it, and then reaches out to shake her hand. Dr. Vector looks at this and notices that HVA is not a blunder either. He folds his hands and offers to finish with a greeting. But HWA also interrupts him, calling them Nameless, and asks why they saved her, what is their goal. Anjin replies that their goal is to destroy the Hunter clan. Ehwa's eyes widen in surprise. He continues to talk about how the Hunter clan, the one who killed her older sister. She asks him in a rage how he knows about this. She is walking slowly towards him. A current is coming from her everywhere. It's a dark night, with a full and bright moon in the sky. Someone in classic shoes comes into the house. The man in the wheelchair says they haven't seen Anjin for a long time. And Jen greets him and calls him an old man. The elder pulls off the sword cover so that the guest can be seen in the reflection. He says that he has already retired, so he and Jen was probably interested to find out why he called him. Anjin replies that if he says no, it will be a lie. The elder tells him that he would like him to help one child. He immediately asks if he really got attached to the dog that he raised himself. He calmly says that during the time that they have not seen each other, he has become more audacious. Well, anyway. He lowers and folds the sword. His silhouette begins to blur, especially his face. His eyes begin to burn with a bright scarlet color. He asks Injenu if he is ready to talk now. Anjin reflects that even with teeth that have fallen out, a tiger is a tiger. He pulls up a chair, sits down and says that he will listen to the elder. The elder begins the story that her name is. He stammers and suggests calling her a hero killer. She has incredible abilities. In addition to the innate talent of a fighter, undoubtedly in the future she will become a very influential person. But not now. If she runs into really strong people, she will definitely die. And Jen finally asks, that is, the elder wants to entrust him with this child. The old man says that Ingen has a clear goal, to destroy the clan, but in the process he will have to face one girl, and that he, who participated in the war, probably understands his words, even though he will crush the whole clan. If he does not cope with her, then defeat will be on his side. Anjin covers his face and asks what it means. The elder wants to say that the hero killer can get close to that girl. The wind blows over the burning candle. The old man replies that it may happen someday. Anjin then easily agrees that, if so, then fine. However, if she breaks down, then he will have nothing to do with it. He gets up, turns around, thinking to leave, but then the old man asks him again about the words that she will break, and then confidently and menacingly says that he, the elder, was the one who taught her everything, and let him look so that she does not tear him to pieces. Anjin doesn't say anything to that. Returning to real time, we see HWA surrounded completely by her power. Anjin asks her if she really wants to find the killer of a member of her family. Does she really like to die after fighting them? And HWA says stoically that this was not the answer to her question. She repeats her question. How does he know about her sister? John comes to the conclusion that it looks like she wants to die and attacks HWA. She deflects the blow and notices that it is fast, but then she notices that John was stopped by some black threads, similar to oil. Anjin calls John, it's his black power, and HWA looks at people and comes to the conclusion that this is utter chaos, what kind of nameless ones, and how such an organization can be supported. Anjin's powers over John dissipate, after which John says there won't be another time. Suddenly, Dr. Vector starts screaming, defending and HVA. Rachel asks the doctor what's wrong with him. It's fun, so let him leave them. Dr. Vector says he can't just stand still, so he suggests stopping wasting emotions. And HWA thinks it looks like they won't answer her so easily. The reason they saved her is pretty simple. Obviously, they need her strength in some business, what she doesn't have, but they have his information. If this is the case, then the types of deals that may appear are limited. She is in a situation in which she will not be able to refuse their offers, but in order to seize the leadership, she must take the initiative. And HWA declares out loud that she knows what they need from her. She says that, using her power, they will give her information in return. Anjin says that, in his opinion, she quickly understands what's what. Rachel is still smiling and looking at everyone. And HWA agrees to the deal, after which he asks to say what they are really up to. Dr. Vector replies that they are planning to destroy the 17 branch of heroes, which includes Seiko. It's sunset outside, the sky is in soft colors, and HWA asks again, is it really in the 4th, and then adds that they seem to be out of their minds. Anjin asks what she is talking about, because there will be 5 people with her already. There are girls sitting in some canyons. One asks what's going on with the schedule. The blue-haired girl, sorting through the sheets, answers that all days, including weekends, are completely packed for the next 2 weeks. Today, too, after the raid on the villains, you will need to be present at the filming of the clan's commercial. Another girl responds with the phrase that you can kill yourself. The blue-haired girl asks her for forgiveness, which she does not understand, and asks why she is apologizing at all. She turns to the girl. She has long hair and golden eyes. She says it's all because she's so cool. Her name is Victoria. She has several orders on her chest. She says that it is very difficult to represent all the heroes. The blue-haired one begins to get scared, while Victoria stretches her neck and says that it looks like they're coming. There is smoke on the horizon. If you see it, then there are cars with large weapons. One uses a stick to kindle a flame, and shouts to the rest of the guys to burn everything too. One notices Victoria on the road and asks why some girl is blocking the road there. He replies that it doesn't matter, they will just run over her, and that's it. Victoria pronounces the word Memon, which means a beautiful dream. The clouds in the sky begin to thicken, a thunderstorm begins, and one strong lightning goes vertically straight to her. A huge sword appears on Victoria's hand. She asks about the reporters. The blue-haired one replies that there are none. She asks about the cameras, to which she also receives a negative answer. She swings her sword and says that then she doesn't have to hold back. After the blow from the sword comes a strong wind that hits all the people. The clouds go away, and HWA puts the sword down and says she needs a drink as soon as she finishes. In the 17th branch, John is wondering if it was worth letting her go just like that, because he didn't really like this girl. That is, an HWA. He turns to Rachel Sinclair and asks why she didn't use the gift. Rachel answers by asking if he wants someone to die, but she doesn't. Besides, she liked this in HVA. She praises her, saying that HWA is also beautiful, and even straightforward in character, isn't it? Dr. Vector replies that he doesn't know how to say it. He says that he himself was almost deceived by her, because her every action was calculated. Perhaps the moment when she got angry was also just a game. Rachel asks how he understood this. Dr. Vector puts his hand on his heart and says about the heart and HVA, and that it was beating the same way. From the moment they met her in the medical office, right up to the moment she came out of their hiding place. Rachel says that she is the complete opposite of Angel, because even if he pretends to be cold-blooded on the outside, everything is boiling in his soul. And Jen shuts them up and says that he will not accept any other opinion. They will carry out an attack on the 17th branch together with the hero killer. Rachel rejoices and jumps, and the doctor just takes his head wearily. Then Anjin turns to John and sternly repeats again that he should not get involved without permission. Otherwise, the next time Anjin will kill John in this case. Silence falls. Rachel and Dr. Vector stand quietly, and then the doctor offers to eat, to which Rachel happily agrees. And HWA says she was so carefree. He pulls himself up on the horizontal bar with one hand, lifts his whole body. In parallel, she is stubbornly thinking about something. She is standing in a dark place. There is some kind of stand below her that holds her. She notices that it's high. She looks up and sees Anjin a few steps above her. She says again that this is very high, and that Viper was also strong. But that guy named Anjin is on a completely different level. But there will definitely be heroes who will be stronger even than Anjin. She sees herself sitting on the palm of a huge skeleton with a strange skull, which has something like a muzzle around its mouth. She wonders if she can get to them. She has a timer in her hand. The same force of electricity appears around her body again. Over time it disappears. She timed it to see how long the force will last. It clamps the timer at 7 minutes and 37 seconds. As a result, this is the maximum duration of use. She lies down on the floor with her back and says that the result is better than it was before, but it's still not enough. She covers her eyes with her forearm. She remembers her sister, bloodied, hugging her, and repeating over and over again that she should live. She says that she must survive by all means. She gets up, looks up, thinks that the beginning has come. Her gift is improving by stealing other people's gifts. She clenches her fist and says that she will kill every single one and take away every gift. Again we see that skeleton with a strange skull, with a red light burning from each hole. She is still standing on the palm of this skeleton, but only here she is with a weapon. She sees dark silhouettes in front of her and immediately scatters them all with her knife in turn. And then she cuts the skeleton's skull. She will step over everything, rise higher, and will stand in the same place as them. She returns to the cafe where she works with the master. He adjusts his glasses and asks if she really fought. She answers ambiguously, saying that both yes and no. The old man first reacts with an awkward smile, and then hands her a mop and says that, well, then get to work. She is again in an apron wiping the floor with this mop. She looks at the master. The one who wiped the windows notices him and says that if she wants to say something, then let her say it. She stops mopping the floors. The next thing the master says is the question, is she really leaving? And HWA remembers the incident with Seiko in the cafe, after which the whole floor was covered in blood. And HWA replies that yes, she's leaving. Since her true identity has been revealed, he can't stay here anymore. They are silent. Then the old man says that he initially suddenly offered her this job, so it would be ugly to keep her any longer. But anyway, he turns to her and says that she can come back at any time. Then he laughs awkwardly and asks if he really said it too seriously. There are practically no visitors anyway, so let him look in here sometimes to rest. But of course he will pay her. Then he says that okay, they have sorted it out, and then points out the window where Seiko is standing watching them closely, and asks if she is really a friend and HWA. And HWA, as soon as he sees her, immediately pushes the master back and activates his power. She knew that she would come back, and that this time she would not let Seiko have her way. She attacks her right through the glass. Seiko falls back while HWA holds her leg, and then abruptly pulls out a sword from under her skirt and aims at Seiko, but all this turns out to be just her performance, more precisely an HWA. Now she sees Seiko happily knocking on the window, and HWA wonders why she came without a weapon then. And HWA takes off her apron and says she'll be back in a minute. The old man remains with an apron in his hands and wonders who will close the cafe then. Seiko takes a soda out of the car in a jar and throws it to the side with the words, so that the jar is caught. And HWA grabs the jar and looks at it suspiciously. Seiko says it's pretty tasty, does she know that? And HWA examines the jar, where it says that it is pleasantly refreshing mint water. She looks up and tells Seiko that she is crossing the line. By the light of a lantern, Seiko declares that she didn't think that HWA would really follow her just like that. And HWA keeps looking back at the old man in the store. Seiko tells her not to worry about him, and that she was just fooling around last time. Does she see that she came without a weapon today? And HWA doesn't quite understand her motives. What is she trying to achieve? Is there really no revenge because of Viper's death? She sees Seiko carelessly drinking soda. She sits down on a nearby bench and asks Seiko what she wants. Seiko says that HWA also looks like she is burning with curiosity. Well, she also does not intend to pull the cat by the tail. She points at HWA with her index finger and says she needs her. She wants HWA to be her partner. And HWA doesn't react in any way at first and just looks at her in bewilderment, and then asks what kind of nonsense she is talking at all. And if she continues to play, Seiko abruptly interrupts her that this is not a game, and that she says it's all serious. Shape, shifting or fire possession are opportunities only for a select few. They have a gift. Also who possess such mystical powers, have incredible endurance and can live much longer than ordinary people, but ironically, few of them live long enough to die of natural causes. The lab asks if Viper has been her partner for more than a decade. Is this true? The girl asking this question is eating a Chupa Chups. She says it probably hurts. This girl with green hair and a white coat is called Unisong. She asks again if this is the case with Seiko. Seiko just silently and crazily looks at Yuna. She says that the corpse looks like his head was blown off. What a shame for that sullen man. In fact, he was quite an interesting person, and yet dead people are all the same, after all. Then she asks Seiko how their meeting went. Seiko spreads her arms and says that HWA immediately refused her, of course. She used her power and saw the actions of EHWA. She says that EHWA looked like she had already met others. Yuna laughs and notices that Seiko doesn't look confused because of this. She replies that yes, even after rejecting her offer, she still promised to do her a small favor. Yuna asks about the service, and she replies that it's a secret. She grabs the gloves and says she'll go. She shakes these gloves and says that in general she came for this because she always wanted to try them on. Yuna is left with a lollipop in her mouth. Seiko tells her to be careful because she thinks something bad is going to happen in their department. Seiko remembers HWA and comes to the conclusion that she is captivating. Within such a short period of time she has become much stronger. The leaders of the clan do not even need to think twice about her, but even a small light, if given enough time, can turn into a fire. What kind of monster will HWA become? There are a lot of different types of weapons hanging on the wall. A small knife, large swords, an axe. She wipes every weapon with a rag. She pulls the same material with laces and small metal balls. Suddenly, a message comes to her phone asking if she has everything ready, and an enjoying smiley face. And the next message is about the proposal to kill them all. Starry night. and HWA diligently runs somewhere and reaches the end of the roof. She crouches, looking down. She jumps and falls very quickly. She deliberately changed the direction so that she falls backwards. She opened her arms, a weapon shot sharply from the sleeve of one hand, which holds onto something with its sharp ends, wraps around with a rope, and thus a person can stop falling. She pulls on this rope, lands on another roof and sees the guard roof. Guards are standing at this watchtower and cheerfully discussing some coffee story with a good mood and laughter. One of them stops laughing, looks suspiciously ahead and abruptly pulls out a weapon, asking in parallel who is here. They shine on the road, which is flanked by trees, and realize that it is empty and there is no one there. The second one asks the suspect if something is wrong. He first reflects and comes to the conclusion that, probably, it was just an animal. But it was not there, and HWA first stands behind these two, and then sharply beats one of their guards. The second manages to pull out a gun and point it at her, but HWA also dodges, grabs this gun, and with the help of his power turns this gun to metal. Then she punches him in the stomach from below, after which he crumples to his knees. And HWA tells him that she will spare his life if she continues to remain silent. And then she orders him to get a walkie-talkie. He takes a walkie-talkie out of his pocket with a trembling hand, hesitantly holds it out to HWA, and she sharply hits his hand that the walkie-talkie also just breaks to pieces. After she broke the radio, she punched him in the head so that he bent to the ground, but the blow was so strong that he slammed his head into the ground, that the asphalt broke into pieces. She gets up calmly and goes further inside the building. Those two remained unconscious at the entrance. The buildings are very dimly visible, as if they were enveloped in fog. And HWA asks the Nameless ones, that is, they want to say that they have infiltrated the 17th branch. And do they have a plan at all? Rachel happily and carelessly replies that first there will be a bang, and then a bang bang. Dr. Vector is no different either and asks if they guys could just take them and grind them to powder. And John clutches an object in his hand and says that we need to kill them all. And HWA stands in front of these three, and after listening to these plans of theirs, covers his mouth, rolling his eyes, comes to the conclusion that they are just fools. She goes out onto the roof where Anjin is standing and calls his name. Anjin immediately starts talking, suggesting that the first thing to do is disable the guards. He says that it is necessary to withdraw the guards of the territory, in fact, security guards, people who maintain public order under the flag of the clan. They don't use gift because they are often sent to less dangerous operations. Rachel immediately asks, that is, in other words, they are quite weak and whether they should worry about them at all. And HWA immediately thinks that Anjin is right, and that it would be better to minimize the number of variables in the equation. As soon as the guards are gone, the hero clan will have to switch their attention to something else. They don't know who is in the team, but she is sure that they will be forced to act. Dr. Vector suddenly says that he remembered something. He heard that the head of security is in the 17th branch, and that the head of the 17th branch is a retired hero, so it will be quite difficult if he joins the case. Anjin agrees with this and says that they should eliminate him so that things go as smoothly as possible. Rachel starts to say that if so, then she is interrupted by HWA and firmly says that she will do it, and that she will go there. And then she says that she is sure that because she does not trust them, they also do not trust her, so this will be a chance to show her loyalty to them. And then she asks how such an offer is for them. Angel smiles faintly and agrees to the offer, and then says that this is not a completely fair deal, so he asks her, approaching her, what she wants in return. She replies that she wants Angel's gift. She holds out her hand to him and confidently says that she wants him, gift Angel. Returning from her memories to reality, she is still fighting with the tower guards. At one, she takes the blow to the side and hits the other with her elbow in the face. She slams the man's head against the wall again, that the wall breaks and a big hole is formed. The guards are knocked down, they are all lying on the floor unconscious. She goes on, leaving the people, and comes to some door, through the crack of which the light is visible. The man sitting in the room where the recordings from the cameras are broadcast says that they have gone too far. Does this mean that they have killed all his subordinates? The door opens, and HWA comes in and answers him that he doesn't know if they are dead. She begins to stretch her arms and says that she is only sure that he will definitely die. And HWA begins to stretch her arms and says that she is only sure that he will definitely die. The man gets up from his desk and says he heard a noise on the lower floors. He takes an axe-like weapon and says that she and HWA were the ones who killed Viper and Jade. This man's name is Greymon, and HWA keeps warming up and asks what if it's her. Greymon abruptly throws the axe in a twisted form. It flies straight to an HVA. She easily catches this axe by the handle, stopping it a few centimeters away from herself. She swings the same axe and throws it back to Greymon. He dodges, removing his head to the side, after which the axe flies past him even further. And HWA tells him that he does not need to restrain himself and asks him to attack her with all his might. She stands in a combat readiness pose with her arms outstretched in front of her. Greymon tightens his sleeves, smiles contentedly, pushes his foot into the floor with all his strength that it cracks, and jumps at EHWA. His eyes are glowing red. He waves his hands in her direction. She dodges, and then immediately gives a retaliatory punch. Greymon deflects this blow with his forearm, protecting himself, and HWA is already aiming straight at his face. He dodges, but he could not repel the next blows to the chest. They all quickly and strongly hit him in the chest. Then HWA uses his leg and kicks him in the face. But Greymon intercepts her leg, squeezes her ankle tightly and, swinging, throws her far away from herself that she breaks the wall with her body. She quickly lands on her heels, using friction to stop herself. She doesn't have time to get up, as Greymon is already next to her and swings his fist and hits her right in the face. And HWA abruptly grabs his arm with both hands, makes a grab with his legs and throws him into a deflection that they fall together. She abruptly releases her hand and pushes away from him with a kick. Greymon gets up. Blood is flowing from his nose. And HWA kicks into the ground and she throws cracked pieces of soil at him. While Greymon analyzes and thinks that her movements are unusual and very inventive, and she has good physical fitness. Greymon hides from the stones with her hands and continues to reflect that she has extensive fighting skills. But that's not all, she's just an excellent fighter. Not only talent, but such training has strengthened her. Most likely, she went through hell, tempering her body so that it becomes like this. But then he comes to the conclusion that, after all, she is far from invincible. Greymon licks his lips and plans to break her slowly. They stand holding each other's hands. Greymon tells her that he is still interested in finding out who she is. Could she tell him that? And HWA sees and understands that Greymon is still holding back. He still has a low opinion of her. But he does not understand who controls the fight, if she wanted. They show us a picture where Greymon is surrounded by many swords, and then they pierce him all at once. And he bleeds. She could have killed him many times already. But she can't. She clenches her fists. She wants him to use his gift. He will have to become her next step. After these thoughts, she slaps him sharply in the face with her fist. He steps back and rubs his face, and HWA abruptly raises his leg and is about to kick him. But Greymon dodges the blow, but he does not have time to react, as the next blow follows, and again he gets kicked in different parts of his body, stomach, face, and then with his fist. She's going to rip off his mask, because he's just a snack for her. She makes the final blow. He flies off and crashes into the wall, after which he coughs. And HWA wonders if that was enough. Greymon gets up, coughs, and abruptly throws her a sword. And HWA manages to get away from the blow, and sees that this sword of his just divided the floor into two parts. Greymon begins to say that she doesn't have to tell him who she is and where she's from, and that he'll make her say it while gasping painfully. Now, instead of one hand, he has a huge sharp blade. And HWA looks around and finds some iron sticks on the floor. She bends down and takes them in her hands, stands up and defiantly tells him to try it. And HVA says that our body needs nutrients to maintain energy, and gift users have an energy resource called ECT. And during the battle between the users of the gift, the one who wisely uses his ECT wins. Some chosen ones initially have a small amount of ESTA, some use less ESTA energy. As an example, Jade is cited, while others are much more. Immediately we are shown a Viper who looks at his hoodie. For example, she can use the Jade gift for more than 5 minutes, but the Viper gift can only be used for a couple of seconds. If she is not careful, she can easily die. Therefore, now in the battle with Greymon, she will have to dodge the most dangerous attacks. Greymon attacks her with his bladed hand, and HWA deflects the blows with iron sticks that she picked up from the floor. Greymon swings hard and hits an HVA on the stomach. She needs to take blows when necessary, and HWA does not react to Greymon's blow in any way, but, on the contrary, sharply hits him in the face with an iron. She needs to do this especially when it helps to attack her in response. After the blow, Greymon frowns in front of her, and HWA decides only after the usual blow to use his gift at the most appropriate moment. It hits the iron that surrounds the current, right in the man's face. Time freezes already. Greymon backs away from the blow. There are almost empty water bottles on the tables. 2 of them stand vertically normally. One lies vertically on the edge of the table, which is why water drops flow from the cork to the floor. Each drop is felt and rapidly falls down. Both HWA and Greymon are standing, deflecting each other's blow. From the collision, a bright light is formed, which comes from the friction of their weapons. Greymon tries to strike from different sides, first from one side, which HVA easily and quickly grasps, then from the other even sharper. But HVA also reflects this blow. Greymon begins to think that something is wrong, and that there is clearly some kind of mistake. An HWA swings and hits him right in the face with an iron stick as soon as he is distracted by the blow. An HWA quickly moves behind him and hits him on the neck. He wonders if she wasn't quite careful, but then he realizes that no, that's not the problem. While Greymon is already lying on the floor, an HWA comes up and sticks a stick into his hand, after which he screams in pain. The stick is stuck in his palm. He stands up a little, leaning on one hand, and says that it is from the very beginning. Then HWA finishes for him that she was much stronger than him from the very beginning. Greymon stands up completely, removes the stick from his palm and says that it's incredible, because he's Greymon after all. Suddenly, several blades come out of every part of his body, not just from his hands. He attacks her in a frenzy, and she deftly and easily dodges a lot of swords. She calmly says that Jade was weak, and Anjin is much more powerful, which is why she just needed an opponent of his level. Greymon rushes to her in anger. His eyes and HVA begin to burn. She says she thinks it's her lucky day. She dodged the blades and approached so that nothing touched her, and then plunged her right into his heart, so that her hand went through his body. After a while, she pulls out her hand, which is covered in blood. Greymon holds onto his chest, which is bleeding. All the swords and blades that came out of his body are slowly disappearing. He backs away, collides with the wall and falls without strength, taking a sitting position. He looks at his hand, and HWA looks at him. Greymon starts swearing and saying how dare he go against the clan of heroes. Why does she need it? Is it really out of a sense of duty or revenge? And that she will be much worse off than he is now. And HWA is silent at first, and then grabs him by the throat and says that it may be so, but when she dies, he will be gone for a long time. And HWA takes him by the throat and puts him on the weight out of the window. He tries to take her hand away, squeezing it with his hand. Tears flow from his eyes and he starts talking about salvation. And HWA tells him to look back because he's going to die right now. She throws him out of the window. He falls down from the tower at high speed and crashes against the car, so that its upper part is crumpled. She checks the gift. Now a sword comes out of her hands. He hides it, looks out the window. Then he runs to the exit, but when he sees something, he is very surprised. She jumps from roof to roof and notices a girl in a cap. This is Victoria taking off her cap, looking up and asking what it is. Victoria asks what it is. While the HWA was jumping from roof to roof, suddenly Victoria was right in front of her. She greets her and gives her a click and a HWA. Suddenly, from this click an HVA flies far back, which breaks everything along the way and finally stops in the corner. She looks up as Victoria looks at her hand. Victoria does not understand. Did HVA manage to block the blow with her forearm, so HVA remained alive? An aura of light and warmth reigns around Victoria. She quietly descends, as if flying down. She lands on the HWA and says she feels blood. She asks who she killed by covering her nose. And HWA confidently says that she doesn't have to answer. Victoria smiles and says that she has a pretty voice, and then adds that because of this she wants to tear her apart. And HWA tells about the elders, the 9 most powerful users of the gift. They do not obey the rules and restrictions of the clan of heroes. The whole world is at their feet. Among them is Victoria. She was born long before the appearance of heroes and villains. In other words, she's a real monster. In truth, and HWA won't be able to get the better of her. It definitely won't happen now, however, if she can create an opening. She activates the current and hits Victoria with a swing. But she simply and with an unperturbed face catches her fist with her hand, without moving. And HWA is surprised that she caught her fist with her bare hands. Victoria asks what she is doing, after which she sharply hits an HVA in the face with a direct blow, and then with a lower one. An HWA is hanging in front of her because Victoria is holding her by one hand. She says she doesn't like HWA either because her clothes don't match her costume at all. And HWA does not react in any way and hangs face down. Victoria calls out to her and asks why she is pretending to be dead, and HWA says something very quietly and indistinctly. Victoria asks again what she is saying. We are shown a scene where both HWA and Anjin shake hands. She tells him not to worry, because she can only steal a gift forever from those she really killed. Anjin tells her that he is not worried about this, because it will not be easy for her with his gift, so let her be careful, and especially at night. And HWA puts his hand on Victoria's shoulder and tells her that she got caught. That sticky liquid that looks like oil comes out of her hands. Suddenly, a kind of hurricane begins, which also includes this liquid. From this hurricane, the light begins to burn sharply brightly and the natural phenomenon dissipates, leaving Victoria alone. Victoria smiles and notices that HVA has already left, as she said, and HVA reminds her of someone. Already in the laboratory, someone wonders why HWA always returns with such a terrible look. Someone answers that, according to assumptions, the head of the guard was much stronger than they thought. And HWA wakes up, opens her eyes and sees Rachel. She says that HWA has woken up, and then asks her if she recognizes this ceiling. And HWA gets up and takes a sitting position and says only something about food. Dr. Vector and Rachel don't understand and ask again. And HWA tells them to give her food. She was served chicken, steaks with vegetables, soup, sausages, French fries with various sauces and pizza with sausages, mushrooms and vegetables. She eats pizza pityingly, that the cheese shrinks from the food. They note that HWA also eats very well. And HWA grabs a chicken leg, bites off once, and on the second the chicken already disappears along with the bones. Vector notices that she eats even very well. Then he remembers something and asks HWA if her arm isn't broken. A chicken bone sticks out of her mouth and she pulls her sleeve higher and looks at her hand, which is very swollen and all red. And HWA grabs a huge beefsteak with a fork and easily says that it will pass when he sleeps. Dr. Vector is alarmed and asks what's up. Did she really say that seriously? Then we already see HVA with a bandaged arm. Dr. Vector says that it doesn't matter and asks Rachel if the drugs are ready already. She replies that there is still something left. Based on what Anjin said, the heroes of the 17th branch began to slowly unite. And now, if they are all in the same building, all they have to do is fry them all. She says the last phrase so enthusiastically and joyfully. Anjin says that when Greymon is dead, he is sure that they will strengthen the security. Some people ask where they will get so many explosives. This questioner is calmed down. Anjin says that you should not worry about this, because he has someone in mind. The deliveryman carries 2 boxes on his hands and wonders who could have ordered 2 boxes of mint water and why they needed it. She looks at her phone, which has a map on the screen. She sees the destination and says it's the right place, however. He looks up and sees a huge residential building, similar to a mansion in a 3-story form. He did not think that such a building could be located in such a place. He approaches this house, gently presses the bell, rubs his eyes and informs that it is a delivery. Suddenly, everyone opens the door. That is, behind the door are both Anjin, John, and Dr. Vector. Even HWA. Rachel herself holds the door. The delivery guy looks at them and the first thing he thinks about is that he really screwed up. He smiles awkwardly at them. After a while she puts the boxes right on the doorstep, saying that, perhaps, he will leave it all here. As soon as he put the boxes on the floor, he abruptly ran away without looking back. Anjin sighs and gives everyone the order to grab him. After that, both HWA, John and Rachel run after him. All 3 of them are chasing after the deliveryman, who is running from them with all his might. He jumps from wall to wall, climbs onto the roof and looks back. He sees all 5 of them, but suddenly his appearance begins to change. He thinks that the terrain is beginning to distort and assumes that these are Gift's forces. And HWA again takes out that material with balls, twists it and throws it at the deliverer. This small weapon breaks the roof apart. The deliverer loses his balance, and HWA grabs this weapon again. The deliveryman starts to fall down, but lands gently. Then a huge and formidable John runs to him. He will attack him, but he dodges by bending down. John does not stop and continues to beat. The deliveryman throws a coin. The next second John hits straight down, which breaks the ground. Suddenly he hears a chuckle coming from the roof above. The deliveryman asks him if he really needs to attack him. John jumps up sharply, making a hole in the roof, and stands right next to the deliveryman. Suddenly, HWA appears behind him. That now he is between these 2. He looks around and comes to the conclusion that the situation is unpleasant. The delivery guy smiles and says he doesn't know why they guys are here, but he's clearly not here for show. And can they really cope with his speed? And HWA claims he's a liar because if he was really that fast, he wouldn't be here for a long time. Which means he's not that fast. She tells him that his gift is to be invisible while the coin is in the air. The deliveryman smiles awkwardly, as if he has been found out. Sweat is already flowing from him like a river. He admits that this is so. He is invisible at the time of the coin toss and until he catches it. If he doesn't catch the coin, he won't be able to use the ability for a while. He can't believe she figured it out so quickly. He wonders how she does it all, but it's not over yet. He suddenly throws a bunch of coins into the air and asks what she will say to this now. An HWA quickly and sharply examines each coin. One shows a ship with sails. She remembers the first case and comes close to that coin. The delivery guy admits that she found it. As soon as he catches the coin and becomes already visible, an HWA gives him a kick in the jaw. He tumbles and hits his back against the wall. An HWA says that he has a very interesting gift, and yet she asks if this is really all he has. He smiles, tosses a coin and says that he still has a trump card up his sleeve. He reflects that she caught him very quickly. He will not be able to defeat them this way, in which case he will do what he wants, and only then will think about the consequences. He throws a coin, and, moving quickly between the buildings, says goodbye to them and expresses the hope that he will never see them again. He keeps running and swearing because he spent all the money on it. Suddenly he sees Rachel around the corner and can't remember if he's seen her before, and then remembers who it was who opened the door for him. Rachel lets her plants with flowers into him. He dodges and says it's too easy, but then he notices that this plant is chasing him. When these plants pass through him, he gets scared at first, and then realizes that it doesn't hurt. He wakes up. He lies on the grass and thinks, is he really in the forest? He sees that a silhouette of a man is sitting on a tree, but covered with plants, and he is all green. Everything around him looks like mummies, but only covered with plants. He wonders where he is. Rachel comes out and asks him how beautiful it is, and that this is her garden. She says that she gets tired while using the gift, so she doesn't do it so often. However, she reports that there are two ways out of here. It's either wait until she releases it herself, or kill her. She turns to him in a green dress and says that he does not look like a strong fighter, and asks what he is going to do, whether he will work with them or wants to play with her. He looks at her in fear, because Rachel is holding a huge and terrible weapon with an eye and huge teeth in her hand. Next comes the story about the delivery of the chain. It looks like an ordinary delivery company with a shark logo with chains, but there are a lot of rumors around this company. They say that they can deliver everything for a good price. They are in the top 10 of this industry. But the head of the company, Chain, is shrouded in secrets. In some prison, this deliverer knocks on the cell door. Words about a piano. A partridge come out of the cage. Finally, through a special window, the detainee recognizes the deliverer and calls him number 9 and asks what he needs here. He waves to him with a smile and says that he needs to see the boss. He agrees and lets him in. As soon as the door opens, all the Nameless S and HVA are with him. John knocks this man out right away. They are being led somewhere by a deliveryman. Rachel asks if he is leading them into a trap. He says that, of course not, they just need to go a little further. They walk along a dark corridor, at the end of which a light is on. In a large room, a heavy man sits at the head of the table and deliverymen stand on the sides. He asks what happened there. The delivery guy laughs awkwardly and says that these people said they wanted to see him. But at the same time, this deliveryman deftly showed his collar, where the symbol of the shark that died. The boss immediately realizes that something is wrong. He lifts the fork up and gives the order to everyone to kill them. Then Angel comes out and uses his power that this liquid becomes with sharp angles. His power reached the boss, or rather his neck. Anjin says they brought a bomb big enough to level 17 branches. Anjin approaches the boss and comes to the conclusion that it is not Chain. Suddenly, a guy comes out of hidden doors and says that he just enjoyed the game and asks the guys why they are doing this to his subordinate. He looks up at Anjin and abruptly realizes who is standing in front of him. The story begins with a pink thunderstorm that hit the cherry blossoms. The guy was lying with his eyes closed, but suddenly, he opened them in surprise. He got up from the ground and said out loud that this lightning not only killed him, but also caused his rebirth on Earth. The guy sat down in the lotus position and began to emit blue light. He closed his eyes and thought that there was nothing left of his cultivation. The guy sat down on one knee and said that since he had returned to Earth, he would have to start all over again. He noticed a girl who was doing something in the bushes and thought that there was someone here. This woman. He never thought that he would meet her again. The guy came closer and said she was beautiful. The girl looked at him in surprise and screamed that it was him. The girl ran away screaming. The guy started thinking that it was Kin Ran. The girl had pink hair and golden eyes, and she had glasses on her nose. She was dressed in a black, classic suit, and a gold pendant hung from her neck. He has not only been reborn, but also returned to the past. He must be a teenager now. Kin Ran is his main boss. He should forget about it. Chu Yun will not confuse personal feelings like in his past life. After this tragedy, his cultivation has completely disappeared. Chu Yun looked like an ordinary teenager. The guy had light brown hair and blue eyes. He was wearing dark blue jeans and a blue t-shirt with the inscription fueling. The guy raised his hands to the sky and shouted that he was reborn. He needed to cheer up. Lightning fell next to Chu-yun, and he said with fear that first of all he needed to focus on survival. The phone in Chu-yun's pocket rang. The guy looked at the device and couldn't figure out whose number it was. He held the phone to his ear and shouted from it that the new headmaster of the school where he was would soon come. They meet at the Kaishen Hotel, and let him hurry up. Chu-yun walked into the hotel and thought that according to his memories from the past, he just applied the Taichai heart, it should come in handy. In front of the guy stood Qin Ran and a man who shouted that Chu-yun should approach him and meet the new headmaster. The man hugged Chu-yun and said that the girl was beautiful and now she was his new boss. The man leaned into Chu-yun's ear and said that he had only been here for 3 months. He has a chance to distinguish himself well in front of Director Qin. The man turned to Qin Ran and pointed his finger at Chu-yun. He told the girl that Chu-yun was in front of her. He was in charge of the 18th grade, and he was also doing an internship here. Qin Ran asked with an evil smile that he was really Chu-yun. The guy awkwardly scratched his head and said that this was their first meeting. Please take care of your employee. Chu-yun thought that after all, he had lived for 1,000 years. Of course he had changed a lot. Qin Ran adjusted her glasses and said she couldn't wait for them to work together. Chu-yun held his hand, but the girl did not shake it, but simply turned around, preparing to leave. The guy thought it was over. He really offended this woman. Qin Ran started walking away from the guy and thinking it was Yun-yun's cousin. She should kick him out of school as soon as possible. She was ashamed anyway, but there's nothing wrong with that. Chu-yun looked after the director and thought that this woman had finally left. Director Qin remembered that she was the only daughter of the chairman of the company, Zhu Jianghuasheng, and it looked like the company was having problems. After that, Qin Ran immediately left school. His cousin was kind to him in a previous life, and now that she has the ability, he will definitely be able to help her. Chu-yun was walking around the hotel and saw a girl with pink hair and a red dress. She waved to him and said that the teacher could sit here. Chu-yun looked at her and remembered that it was Tan Yu. In a previous life they were together, but unfortunately it didn't last long. Chu-yun waved his head in different directions and said that years had passed. There was no point in thinking about it. The guy put his hand on a nearby chair and said that they had not seen each other for a long time. Tan Yu asked in surprise that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. A woman came up to the table and told Chu-yun that today was a solemn banquet. How could he dress like that? And why the guard at the entrance let him into the hotel? Chu-yun and Tan Yu looked at the woman in surprise. She came up behind Tan Yu and said that she was so young and beautiful, and she lived in prosperity. All assets and valuables are just for her. Ordinary people are not worthy of Tan Yu, and it's better for her not to mess with such people at all. Tan Yu grabbed the woman's hand and said that Sister Zhuo didn't need to say that. Chu-yun got up from his chair and said that there was no need to worry. He assured Miss Zhao that he already had a sweetheart. The guy thought that in a previous life he would not have been able to answer without doubt, but now he is sure that his heart belongs to only one person. Chu-yun headed for the exit, and Miss Zhao asked who this girl was because she was very unlucky. Tan Yu said sadly and awkwardly that Sister Zhao shouldn't say that. The guy sat down in another place and closed his eyes. He thought that in this world, his current strength was about at a high level of martial arts. He could not even imagine that the study of Tai Chi was destined, just for this moment, strength at the initial level. In this world, he will be able to develop it to the highest level without any difficulties. A small man in the center of the hall clapped his hands. He said he was asking the teachers to let him introduce their new colleague. Mr. Chen Junyu taught in high school, and now he has joined their collective. He also lives in this 4-star hotel. The guy with a smile said that he welcomes everyone. He is Chen Junyu. The guy looked pretty handsome. He had grayish hair and pink eyes, was dressed in a gray-green suit with a dark red tie. Miss Zhao looked at Chen Junyu and happily said that she had heard about this guy. He became a teacher before he was 30. His family is very rich, and he is incredibly handsome. Zhao leaned over to Tan Yu and said that this man was so attractive, not like this homely Chu-yun. Chu-yun looked at the man who was surrounded by people from all sides. He thought that Chen Junyu was his worst enemy in his previous life. For the sake of courting Tang Yu, he constantly framed him. Because of this guy, he was even forced to leave his job. Chen Junyu approached Chu-yun and said that he had heard that Chu-yun was still a trainee. He can count on him in the future. Here is his business card. And also, as his old friend, a 20% discount on everything in the hotel. Chu-yun looked at the business card in Chen Junyu's hands and thought that he was trying to gain favor with his money. Chu-yun held a business card in his hands and said with a smile that he had heard that the chairman of the hotel, Kai Shen, had resigned from his post, and now Chen Zhongfei was taking his place. Why not Chen Junyu? Chen Junyu said angrily that it means Chu Yun, after all, keeps track of what is happening in secular circles. But in any case, the snake will remain a snake, no matter how it tries to distinguish itself. The little man who represented the new employee walked up to the table and tapped it with his hand. He turned to Chu Yun and angrily said that Teacher Chen had devoted himself only to science, and he still needed to work hard. The little man pointed to another chair and said that Chu Yun had taken Teacher Chen's place, so he asked him to move. Chu Yun fiercely asked why. The man shouted that Chu Yun was an intern, and he was the head teacher of language classes. Miss Zhao looked at this scene and said that arguing with Dong Guohao was stupid and now it would be difficult for him to get an internship. Chu Yun got up from the chair and put his hand on its back. He said that the man would not be able to afford this place. Chen Junyu replied with an evil smile that only uselessness would talk so much. Chen Junyu sat down on a chair with a victorious smile and said that since it came to that, he would not stand on ceremony with him. Zhao angrily told Tan Yu that she should just take a look at Chu Yun. He is not only poor, but also useless. The leg of the chair Chen Junyu was sitting on broke. Teacher Chen was lying on the floor all red from his drink. He shouted angrily for the waiter to come up to him. Chen Junyu got up from the floor and shouted at the waitress that they had terrible chairs, which he was sitting on was broken. The girl replied in surprise that this was his hotel. Chu Yun held out his hand to the man and said that Teacher Chen is really a great teacher, even in terms of dissatisfaction with his hotel. He's really excited. Chen Junyu angrily shouted Chu Yun's name. The guy happily thought that he had used his inner strength to break this chair. Chu Yun started to leave, but Chen Junyu shouted at him to stay. The guy who was sitting at the table with Ms. Zhao said they could go to karaoke. Everyone happily agreed. Chen Junyu, who was also sitting at their table, said that if they wanted to go to karaoke, then how about Dan Huang karaoke, because he pays. Miss Zhao happily said that this is the most expensive karaoke bar, and, as they say, the minimum fee for one person is measured in thousands. The little man rubbed his palms and said that it was not such a big expense for Teacher Chen. Chen Junyu proudly replied that it was quite a bit. Today they all met for the first time, so he should please them. The little man happily said that it seemed that someone had blessed their team. Chu Yun watched this conversation and thought that indeed, anyone can become a teacher, although Chen has achieved a lot, yes, and his qualifications are quite high. He is sure that one day, one of their students will piss him off, and the next day this student will have big problems. Chu Yun walked beside Tan Yu. The girl awkwardly said that let him just not get angry. She thinks he should apologize to Teacher Chen. His family is quite influential. He may have serious problems. Chu Yun angrily asked what he should apologize for because he said something hurtful to him. Chu Yun discontentedly thought that he couldn't believe that he also had to apologize. He, who has such power, yes, even if he is wrong, he should not apologize. Tan Yu looked into the guy's eyes and said that he was so stubborn. Sooner or later he would not be well. Everything is not as beautiful as Chu Yun thinks. The guy replied that it wasn't like that at all. He thought that maybe Tan Yu would treat him well, but she could not convince him in any way. Chen, for his own benefit, would rather prefer Chen Junyu. The girl exhaled angrily and thought that they were transported to two different worlds, which are getting farther and farther away from each other. Chu Yun was in a karaoke bar and looked around. The guy thought that the day after tomorrow he would start classes. He still hasn't prepared for anything, so much trouble. Miss Zhao sat down next to Chen Junyu and said that she heard that karaoke belongs to Fang Huang. Chen looked at his drink and thought that Fang Huang was influential. He controls the city of Jujian. Now there is karaoke in every area of it. People say that one director who has been guilty in front of him is paying him off to this day. By status, the Kai Shen Hotel is inferior to Huang's establishments. Chen kept thinking that at first he really didn't expect it, but now that he has come, he has to hide in corners. Guys in suits entered the room and mockingly called a small man. Everyone turned and looked at the little man. A man shouted that it seemed to be him. Men in suits rushed at the little man. He took out his phone and shouted in fear what they were doing and where they were taking him. It was a crime. He calls the police. The man who controlled the people in suits said that even if he called the emperor, it was useless. The little man began to struggle out of the hands of the guys who were holding him. He shouted to Chen that he had to save him. Chen Junyu came forward and asked Chief Zhang what was going on. The man replied that Chen did not need to doubt his respect. His friend was touching their boss's woman. The little man screamed that he had only touched her. He didn't know it was their boss's woman. Chen Junyu came up to Zhang and said that couldn't he see that his friend didn't do it intentionally. Maybe they'll forgive him this time. Zhang turned his back on Chen and said it wasn't that easy. Let this little man follow them. Don't make them wait. The man continued to struggle out of the hands of the guys in suits. He shouted for Teacher Chen to help him. Chen Junyu said tensely and with a little fear that there was no need to worry. He has to go. The man has made a not-so-serious mistake. He would like to know how strong the karaoke owner is. Zhang turned his head in the direction of Teacher Chen and said that they should not even think of leaving this room. They should just follow him. Chu Yun noticed the pregnant girl and told Teacher Yang to stand behind him. The girl was delighted and said that it was good and thanked him. Ms. Zhao angrily said that when someone breaks in, you can't see him in the front rows trying to solve the problem. And now he's playing the hero. People entered the room where a man and a girl were sitting on a chair, and a large number of guards were standing nearby. The girl told Boss Huan that this little man touched her. Chen Junyu and the little man said it's over, it's Boss Fang Huang. The man got up from the chair and pointed at himself with his finger. He said he was Fan Huang. This was his establishment. The man asked that they were looking for him. Chen Junyu came closer to Fang Huang and replied that he would explain everything now. There has been some misunderstanding. Just let me explain everything. Fang Huang got angry and smashed a nearby bottle. He shouted that Jiujiang was only a small town in Jiang province, and Boss Huang's influence extended to the entire province. Chen Junyu didn't know what to say. Chu Yun thought that Chen Junyu's family only owned hotels, although he said to bring Chen Huaqiang. It wouldn't help. The girl, who was touched by a small man, hit her abuser on the cheek. The man got down on his knees and shouted that he was wrong and asked Boss Huan to forgive him. Fang Huang pointed his finger at Chen Junyu and said that he should not think that his father, Chen Huajian, was not worthy of his favor. If he broke both of this little man's hands, he would let everyone go. Chen Junyu was surprised and didn't know what to say. Miss Zhao screamed that they were teachers. He couldn't do that. They can declare it in the media. Fang Huang scratched his chin and said he didn't know they were all teachers. He really didn't know. He had fun with students, nurses, flight attendants, but never with teachers. Fang Huang pointed at Miss Zhao and Tan Yu. He said that this time the man's hands would be saved and everyone could leave, but only if these two girls stayed. Miss Zhao screamed that it was a crime. Fang Huang called his guard and said that he should escort these beautiful girls. Miss Zhao looked at Chen Junyu and thought that this was the end. Teacher Chen won't help them. He won't dare to dissuade him. Chu Yun came forward and said that he was challenging Boss Huang to a fight. Fang Huang looked at the guy with scary eyes and said that he really had enough audacity. Tan Yu looked at Teacher Chu with concern. The guy covered the girl with his hand and said that it was not their fault. So why are they bothering these women? The guard threw his fists at Chu Yun, but the guy easily overpowered him. The guard landed on the table and broke it. Chu Yun looked at the defeated man and said that they treated a difficult person badly, otherwise there would be nothing serious about it. They offended the teacher. Chu Yun shouted that teachers should not be insulted. Tian Yu was delighted with the guy to tears. Fang Huang looked at the guy angrily and said that he had laughed at a lot of people in his whole life. His people even had to fight. I wonder how he's going to fight him and his people. Chu Yun sneeringly asked, with him and his people, is it worth it? Chen Junyu was shocked to think that Chu Yun is strange. It's Fang Huang. Chu Yun will not be able to win in a fight against dozens of people. Chen Junyu raised his hand and shouted that something was wrong. He shouldn't listen to this boy. They are teachers from Sangjun. Fan Huang asked in surprise that they were really teachers from Sangzhong. Fang Huang thought that the headmaster of the Sangzhong school was an incredible person. Many influential people in Zhujian were students of that school. The man said out loud that it was good. He is Fan Huang, respects Director Guo. All of them can go, except the boy. He defeated one of his men, now he can't just leave. They should not be afraid, just for the sake of the director. The punishment for him will be only a broken arm and leg. Tan Yu cried out with tears in her eyes that no, nothing like that. They will all leave together. Chu Yun told Teacher Tan to go ahead. She should send Teacher Yang home first. She's pregnant, she must have overworked. Chu Yun looked at his opponents and said that he could handle it here by himself. Everyone tensely headed for the exit. Tan Yu shouted that he should wait. They'll come out and call the police. Chu Yun looked at the girl with a smile, but didn't say anything. The guy was surrounded by a crowd of Fang Huang's guards. The boss hugged his girlfriend and asked if he could fight at all. He would let his brother fight him, but only today. A big, muscular guy who had a long scar on his cheek came forward. He said that Chu Yun's skills are not bad, but they are too simple. His name is Ahu. He used to do fights without rules. He will see how many strokes he has enough. Chu Yun waved his hand and replied that villains like him often say such things in books, and in the end they lose. Ahu got angry at his words and attacked the guy with his fists. Chu Yun easily dodged and kicked Ahu. He knelt down in pain. Fang Huang said with a grin that he had been running a business for so many years, and this was the first time someone had managed to shake his reputation so much. If it's so easy, then it's not worth holding on to it. Fang Huang shouted that maybe the fist fights didn't work, nothing would help him. The guards surrounded Chu Yun and began to attack. The guy easily defeated them all. Chu Yun looked at the guards who were lying on the floor. He thought they were all slightly injured. After all, this is not a magical world. Fang Huang looked at Chu Yun with surprise and a little fear. Fang Huang wondered if this boy was the same as the old man he had let go. He promised him 3 things and then all 3 of his bodyguards were mysteriously defeated. Fang Huang looked at his guards and asked Chu Yun if he was not an ordinary person. Chu Yun walked up to the wall and pressed his imprint into it. One of the guards asked with fear that this was a guy, a man in general. Fan Huang's assistant asked what they should do, because he wanted revenge. Fang Huang got angry and shouted that he really wanted their boss to die. Fang Huang ordered his people to find out about this boy. No, better about the magic master. If they meet with him in the future, show the same respect as for him. If this master is really the same, then it can play into their hands. A little later in a small alley, Miss Zhao told Tan Yu that she shouldn't worry. The police said that a group would arrive soon. The girl looked at her phone and anxiously said that an hour had already passed. It was only 3 minutes from the police station to this place. Chu Yun came up behind them. He asked what was wrong and why they were still here. Tan Yu blushed and asked if he was okay. The guy replied that really, she thought he would do something. He is a man who by nature speaks like a teacher. The boss was so convinced and amazed by his words that he let him go. Tan Yu looked at the guy with disappointment and said that he probably used the reputation of the old director. She had heard that he was highly valued in Zhujiang. Chu Yun looked at the departing girl and thought that there was no point in telling the truth anyway. They came up with a great explanation themselves. The next morning, Chu Yun was sitting in the lotus position and a bluish radiance emanated from him. He thought that he needed to make a breakthrough to the wuxi level sooner. If he doesn't find a place with a strong aura, it will take him a long time to accumulate energy. He shouldn't waste time. He remembered that the Sangjiang school was located on the outskirts. The guy looked out the window and thought it was time to go. Early in the morning, Chu Yun walked to school and thought that classes had not started yet. It is better to quickly find a place with a source of strong aura to start cultivation. Suddenly he felt something and realized that it was clairvoyance. Chu Yun found himself next to a lake. The guy thought that now he can only use his inner strength, while it is impossible to borrow the power of heaven and earth. Chu Yun saw the 3,000-year-old Banyang tree. The guy thought that a lot of power is stored in this tree. Its energy is not dissipated. It collected energy from all around. Perhaps it has been for more than 1,000 years. He realized that this tree is perfect. Chu Yun got into a position to gain strength and closed his eyes. He thought it was time to start. Chu Yun waved his hands until a white, glowing sphere formed in them. The guy recalled that in his previous life he was a member of the Tai Chi sect. This sect is famous for its special art of Tai Chi. Its foundations are considered the best among the rest. The guy used a special technique and a strong wind rose, which hit a man in a white suit. The man watched the guy and thought that these were the movements of the master. Suddenly, he realized that this was the real art of Tai Chi. Chu Yun closed his eyes and exhaled in relief. He thought that he had finally managed to make a breakthrough. Now he is at the wuxi level. The next level is Da Wuxi. After all, the spiritual aura on earth is too weak. Even with his talent, it will be difficult to achieve high results. Perhaps it's worth looking for some spiritual artifacts. Chu Yun looked at the tree and said that, thanks to it, he borrowed the energy to make a breakthrough today. In the future, he will repay the help. The man in the white suit bowed to the guy. Chu Yun addressed this man as a master. He asked what he was doing. The man replied that he was Mr. Guo. He was asking very much for the young man to be his teacher. The guy put his hand forward and said that this man was the old director of Guo. He will be misunderstood if someone sees this scene. Mr. Guo got angry and shouted that no one would dare. The man folded his hands in a special gesture and said that the Mr. he met was a real teacher and master. He is Mr. Guo, very passionate about the art of Tai Chi. It is quite difficult to start, but he is full of desire to comprehend it. Chu Yun looked regretfully at Mr. Guo. He thought that he was so sincere in his desire to become his disciple, but according to the laws of the sect, the basics of Tai Chi cannot be freely distributed. In addition, the basics of Tai Chi that he studied are quite high level. Not everyone manages to master it. You need to be an extremely serious student who has to make an important decision and take an oath. Mr. Guo continued to hold his hands in a special gesture, but he also closed his eyes. He thought that the guy did not want to accept him as an apprentice. Director Guo's level is not that good. he will not be able to learn how to accumulate energy. Mr. Guo opened his eyes. He continued to reflect that, here on Earth, there is an unreal world. Almost all people who live such a life have amazing talents. He has already been lucky to meet such people at least once, but those influential people are far from this young man. If he misses this opportunity, he is afraid that he will regret it for a long time. Mr. Guo bowed slightly and again made a special gesture. He shouted that he was asking this mister to accept his request. He wants his most important wish to be fulfilled. Chu Yun channeled his strength into Guo's hands so that he would finally relax. Chu Yun said that Director Guo was trying to force him to do it. However, he can accept him as a disciple. If he manages to master the energy absorption technique, he will rightfully become his disciple. Mr. Guo fell to his knees and shouted that he was very grateful. He won't disappoint him. Chu Yun looked at the man and thought that the energy absorption technique was an innate ability. Director Guo is already old, and he doesn't have any additional energy sources. It will be very difficult for him to master this. The spiritual sphere in this world is divided into 5 stages: Wu Tu, Wu Shi, Dao Wu Shi, Wu Jian, Zhangxi. His master was at the Zhangxi stage. Mr. Guo said he wanted to know the master's name. The guy replied that he was Chu Yun, and he didn't need to call him master. It's kind of inconvenient, he'll just Chu. Guo waved his hands and shouted that if he did this, he would not be able to show respect to his master. This is the truth left to them by their ancestors. Chu Yun awkwardly replied that, then, you can call him whatever you want when the two of them are together. Guo said loudly that he agreed. Chu Yun looked into his student's eyes and said that one of his specialties was Tai Chi. He shouldn't know exactly where this sect is located. He has a suitable cultivation method for Director Guo's age. Mr. Guo replied with a smile that it was fine. But what exactly was the method? Chu Yun touched his finger to Guo's forehead. The man was illuminated by a blue light, and he felt a large amount of different knowledge. Mr. Guo looked at his hands and shouted that it was amazing. Chu Yun replied that it was fine. He's done, now it's time for him to leave. Mr. Guo looked after the departing guy. He thought that his master was becoming more and more mysterious in his eyes. He is definitely a very influential and strong person. He will probably be able to accumulate impressive experience while he is his student. Mr. Guo ran after Chu Yun, saying that his house is not so far from here, why not have a snack at his place? Today is internship day, and teachers can't just leave. Chu Yun stopped and said okay, let's go. A little later at the house of Director Guo, the man showed his big house and said that they live here with his wife. He has 2 children, but they are usually busy, coming home only a couple of times a year. Chu Yun thought that Director Guo Lao was not such an ordinary person in Jiujian. Daughter, Guo Zaizu is the chairman of the only 5-star hotel in Jiujiang. His son, Guo Panlei, is the director of the Public Security Bureau in the city. Director Guo knocked on the door, shouting that he was back. The door was opened by an old woman with glasses. Her name is Yang Chan. The woman greeted her husband and asked that a student had come to visit them. Mr. Gu cleared his throat and replied to Yang Chan that this was not his disciple, but his master. The woman asked in surprise what kind of master. Guo sternly told his wife that she should come and greet him. Chu Yun awkwardly said that she was Dr. Yang. Mr. Lao caught him during Tai Chi classes. Then, he asked him to become his master. She can just call him Chu Yun. The guy thought he had heard that Director Guo's wife was a famous doctor. Yang Chan apologized for her doubts. In her heart, the woman was very angry and thought that this old man was so passionate about Tai Chi. She didn't think that such a thing could happen, but this stubborn old man is still trying to do it. The woman let her husband and Chu Yun in with the words that they should go to the table. She will prepare everything now. Chu Yun stared at Yang Chang and asked what was wrong with her ankle. The woman asked in shock how he found out about it. Mr. Gao put his hand on his wife's shoulder and shouted why she didn't tell him what happened to her. Yang Chan reluctantly said that she is a doctor, she always knows what's wrong with her. At her age, it's not treatable, but he needs to believe that there's nothing serious here. Chu Yun sternly said that there was just something serious here. If it is not cured now, it can lead to loss of motor ability for a long time. The woman was surprised to think that this young man only glanced at her and realized that something was wrong with her. This terrible news she did not tell her husband, because she could not. Mr. Gu and Yang Chan began to scold. The man shouted that she should have told everything earlier. Yang Chan replied loudly that even if she did, it wouldn't help in any way. He won't do anything but scream. The woman began to leave with the words that first they would stop swearing. She'll cook some food. Yang Chang left, and Mr. Guo asked Chu Yun if he knew how his wife could be cured. Yang Chang put on an apron and told Chu Yun not to listen to this harmful old man. The woman thought that she had come to see many outstanding doctors, tried to use Chinese medicine herself, even resorted to the help of alternative medicine. Nothing helped her, it's impossible to cure. Chu-yun remembered that Dr. Yang was a military doctor, she was a very good specialist. The guy said that Dr. Yang's illness is not so difficult to cure. Yang Chan hesitantly said that her seems that this is not true. Mr. Gao loudly asked why she didn't believe him. She doesn't trust his master. Yang Chan sat down on a chair and showed her ankle. She said she would let Chu-yun help her. The guy touched the sore spot, which lit up with a blue light. He said it was simple. Yang Chan thought in shock that it couldn't be. A little touch and all her pain was gone. The woman addressed him as Teacher Chu and asked what kind of technique it was. Yang Chan thought that this young man was incredible. Chu-yun replied with a smile that it was a slightly improved basic Tai Chi skill. It can be supplemented with massage. Chu-yun got up from the floor and told Mr. Guo that he should remember what his teacher had just done. Now his wife will get better, the blood inside has almost dispersed. Now you need to do a massage every day. Within a month the leg will stop hurting at all. Mr. Gao said he would do everything. The man turned to his wife with the words that he said, "This is his master, how could she underestimate him?" Yang Chang told Chu-yun that she was very grateful to him. With his great talent, instead of working at Sang Jun's school, it's better to go to the university where she works. Mr. Gao shouted to his wife, how dare she try to steal his master right from his tray. Chu-yun watched the couple with a smile. A couple of minutes after lunch, Mr. Guo knelt down with a cup of tea and said that his disciple had prepared more tea for him. Before Chu-yun could say anything, Mr. Gu's granddaughter ran into the house. She asked what kind of tea ceremony it was and why he had a student visiting. The girl looked at the guy who was trying to lift Mr. Gu from his knees. She said in surprise that it was Teacher Chu. Mr. Gu awkwardly said that he knew her homeroom teacher was a trainee. He didn't think it would be the master. Chu-yun was very ashamed. He thought that Guo Feifei had called him teacher even though it was just a joke to him. The girl grabbed Guo's hand and shouted that Chu-yun was just a trainee. He may be a good teacher, but what kind of education should he have in order for her grandfather to call him a master? Mr. Guo shouted at Guo Feifei that there was nothing like that, she just didn't know anything. She should apologize to his master now. Guo Feifei glared at Chu-yu and asked what he had said to her grandfather. Chu-yun decided to move away from the topic and said that school would start soon. She completed her task. It seems he asked to answer 10 questions. Guo Feifei thought angrily that no one needed his homework. If it wasn't for her girlfriend, she wouldn't be here. Guo Feifei turned to the exit and angrily told her grandparents that daddy was already waiting for her, she would go. Chu-yun sneeringly said that today she would not be very lucky, she would have to stay here for a while. The girl thought angrily, why on earth should she believe him? Guo Feifei tripped over the threshold and fell to the ground. Chu-yun looked at the girl who was lying on the ground and said that he was talking. But she didn't listen. Mr. Guo wondered if his master could even predict the future. Sanjiang School in Jujian. Chu-yun walked down the corridor of the school in a suit and thought that he had not been here for a long time. Hundreds of years had already passed. The man started to open the door and thought, as usual, surprises and traps will be waiting for him here. He opened the door completely and a glass of water began to fall on top of him, but he deftly caught it. Chu-yun said with a smile that he didn't think they guys missed him so much that they even brought him a glass of water. One guy shouted that he thought Teacher Chu had left, so he couldn't take them out. The girl shouted that Teacher Chu had not passed the internship yet. Maybe he can't pass the exam. Chu-yun looked at the floor and thought that he had been soaped, an old trick. He walked on the floor with ease, without a hint of falling. Chu-yun said it was very clean. They did a great job. Guo Feifei broke a pencil out of anger. Hu Lai, his father, the leader in Jinan, got up from his seat. The guy told Teacher Chu that he thought that with his education and experience in teaching, being just a language teacher wasn't enough. They hope that he realizes this and resigns. Chu-yun, with a smile on his face, thought that these boys were so problematic. In the past, no one helped him, but now everything will be different. A small man and Chen Junyu walked into the office. The little man told Chu-yun that he needed to talk to him. From now on, he and Teacher Chen will switch classes. All the students were in shock and didn't know what to say. Chu-yun sternly asked that he didn't remember asking him to replace his class. The director ordered it or not. The little man cleared his throat and said that he was just an intern. Such issues are not solved through management. He hopes that Teacher Chu agrees. Chen Junyu, with a scary face, told Chu-yun that he had to control himself. Chen thought that all the students in this class were from wealthy families. Almost half of Jujian's rich kids study here. Chen Junyu said that besides, it only seemed to him and Teacher Dong that the students would like to get rid of him. One of the students said that it seemed to her that Teacher Chu had changed. The disciple asked if Chen Junyu wasn't good. His friend replied that the condition of his family does not correlate with the profession of a teacher. Chen Junyu angrily told Chuyun that he was addressing him. He generally understands how kind he is to him now. Chuyun replied that he doesn't really like talking to people whose face looks like a fifth point. Teacher Chen shouted furiously that Chuyun wanted to say that his face looked like a place where people sit. Chuyun said with a smile that it was possible. All the students started laughing loudly. Teacher Don angrily said that you need to remember that this is a school. Hu Lai got up from his seat and said that there was just no need to start a fight. Since they both want to be their classroom teachers, he will ask one question, and the one who answers will teach them. If they both fail to answer correctly, they will be unworthy to teach them. Chen Junyu told Chuyun that this is the desire of the disciples. They cannot neglect if one of them loses, then he will be punished. Chen thought that in terms of knowledge, how could he lose to a college graduate? Chen Junyu took the chalk and threw it into a glass of water. He said that the punishment is to drink this water. Chuyun replied that no, this punishment is too simple, not enough. If you have already started a game, then you need to play big. Chuyun finished his speech and spat into this glass. Hu Lai was shocked to think that Teacher Chu didn't look like himself. If they drink it, it's just disgusting. Chen Junyu said with a grin that he couldn't wait to see his face when he drank it. Chuyun replied that it was fine. Hu Lai can ask a question. Hu Lai told both teachers to listen to him carefully. The question is, write on the board the first 1,000 words from the first part of Tao Te Ching. One of the students said that Hai Lai had come up with it in vain. Who even knows Tao Te Ching by heart? His friend replied that he only needed to look at Chen Junyu's face. He thought that Teacher Chu would lose. Guo Fei Fei said she was ashamed of him. Teacher Chen tossed the chalk in his hands and said that he could read the whole work, not like the first 1,000 words of Tao Te Ching. Chuyun smiled and thought that back in the Tai Chi sect, he spent a lot of time reading Tao Te Ching. In addition, he knows every single word of the text, as well as exactly where they are located in the text. Chen Quanyu started writing and thinking that Teacher Chu seemed to have come to an end. Guo Fei Fei shouted in surprise that Teacher Chu had started writing the same thing. Chuyun wrote on the blackboard and thought that if you want to win, you need to do it flawlessly. Hui Lai was watching the words that Teacher Chu was writing. Suddenly, he shouted that it was wrong. Teacher Chu's first word is wrong. The student with glasses said that everything was right there. He wrote Tao Te Ching in the opposite direction. One of the students said that the existence of a person who knows this is almost impossible. His girlfriend replied that unless it was the Teacher Chu they knew. Teacher Chu turned out to be so gifted. Chuyun recalled that Tao Te Ching appeared on Earth after the Zion Men people delivered this text, and the Tai Chi sect spread it. Master Tai Kai's brother and she, will it be possible to meet them again? Chuyun turned to the students and said he was done. The students started clapping for him. Guo Fei Fei wondered angrily what had happened to him. He's changed there. Chen Junyu got angry and squeezed the chalk with such force that it broke in his hands. Teacher Chen took a new chalk. Hu Lai told Chen Junyu that he had lost. Chen said mockingly that he couldn't lose. They both wrote the text. It's a draw. Even if his text is more accurate than his, it does not mean that he lost. Hu Lai shook his head and replied that Teacher Chu had written the text in reverse order, but he had not. If he had written the text as well, it would have been a draw. Chen Junyu's face changed and asked how he could do this. Hu Lai pointed at Teacher Chu and replied that he just needed to look at the board carefully and he would understand everything. Chen Junyu was shocked and wondered how it could be. Teacher Chen pointed his finger at Chuyun and shouted that he didn't believe. Let him write it again. Hu Lai angrily thought that this person still wants to be their teacher. Chuyun held out a glass to punish Chen Junyu. He was telling Teacher Chen that the job was done. Everyone saw it. Teacher Dong was also watching. Did he still refuse to accept defeat? One of the students said that this teacher is not as good as it seems at first glance. Chuyun continued to hold the glass in his hands. He told Teacher Chen with a smile that he wanted to bet and lost, so let him drink this holy water. He hopes that he only warmed it up a little. Is that a bad thing? The students were horrified and said that Teacher Chu called it holy water and even warmed it up. When Teacher Chen became so violent, Chen Quanyu shouted furiously that Chuyun cheated. He conspired with the students. Of course, they're his students. It's all rigged. Teacher Dong approached his colleagues and told Teacher Chu that everyone was watching. He was joking. You don't have to be so serious. Chuyun sternly looked at Teacher Dong and said that he wanted to drink holy water instead of Teacher Chen. Hu Lai gestured, thumbs down. He shouted that Teacher Chen had to be honest, otherwise it would ruin his reputation. This man wanted to be their teacher. Chen Junyu grabbed the glass and drank it all in one gulp. Teacher Chen wiped his mouth and thought that he would take revenge on Chuyun for this humiliation. Chen Junyu threw the glass on the floor and stormed out of the classroom. Teacher Dawn was shouting after him. One girl said with a laugh that Teacher Chu was too cruel. Her classmates said she was going to be sick. All the students gave a thumbs up to Teacher Chu. The signal for the end of the school day rang. Chu Yun whistled as he left the classroom. A girl with glasses came up to him and said that the director was looking for him. Chu Yun blushed and thought that Qin Ran was looking for him. In the director's office, Qin Ran was sitting in her chair. The woman said that she could punish Chu Yun at any time, according to the severity of the incident. Chu Yun was holding a cup of coffee in his hands and said that he just happened to see her in the bushes. He asks not to hold a grudge against him. Qin Ran got angry and blushed. Chu Yun asked that someone already knows about this. Qin Ran, red with embarrassment, said that she was talking about the incident with the holy water that he did. That's the problem. How can he explain it? Chu Yun exhaled and put the cup on the table. Qin Ran happily thought that great, finally he made a mistake. Chu Yun replied that Director Qin, in fact, she does not need to restrain her emotions. It can affect the hormonal background. The last time he noticed red dots on her, the reason for their occurrence could be her bad mood. Qin Ran got angry and threw her notebook at him. Chu Yun easily caught the notebook. Qin Ran blushed and said he was a fool. Teacher Chu said she shouldn't be angry. He's not like that at all. The guy thought that apparently he was too carried away. Qin Ran slapped the table and said loudly that he should know that behind Chen Junyu is the entire leadership of the Kai Shen department. They may not have the best relationship with each other, but this incident may provoke his family. Dong Guo Hao, it depends on him whether he stays here or not. Qin Ran went on to say that there are 3 criteria for forming an assessment. The first is the assessment of the head. The second is her score. The third final assessment, which will take place next month, will contribute another 50% to the rating of his class. Then the results are summed up, and if he manages to score more than 50 points, he stays. Chu Yun was surprised to think that last time it was different. Before that, while the monthly exams were being evaluated, it was enough that his class got into the top 10. It's all because he offended her, such high demands. This woman deliberately arranged everything this way. Qinjan said that if he passed the internship without any problems, she would help him resolve the conflict with Chen Junyu. Chu Yun shouted that they had a deal. It was already night and Chu Yun was at home. He was sitting on his bed and fiddling with his phone. Chu Yun thought that since he came back, he had never been home yet. What will he tell them? He misses you so much. Chu Yun made up his mind and called on the phone. A girl in a wheelchair heard the phone ring. She joyfully held the phone to her ear and asked why her brother had called so unexpectedly. They've been on the phone recently. Chu Yun bit his lip and wept bitterly. He thought he had missed her so much all these years. Chu Yun, wiping away his tears, told his sister that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. He started the school year, so he's all business. Dad's probably still at work. Like her leg, everything hurts. Chu Yun angrily recalled that his sister had congenital atrophy of the lower leg, often accompanied by pain. During bad weather, this pain spreads throughout the body. For many years, doctors said that no treatment would help her. Chun Yun's sister replied that it hurt, but she was already used to it. When he's going to come, maybe this weekend. Chu Yun replied that if there was no business at school, then on the weekend. They chatted for an hour. Chu Yun even said that he accidentally saw his boss in the bushes. Chun Yun's sister, laughing, said that they say women with large forms can carry a child more easily, and his headmistress has the right figure. It's time to get a daughter-in-law. Chu Yun awkwardly said that even she was making fun of him. It's late. It's time for her to rest. He's shutting down. Chu Yun held his phone in his hands and stared sternly at the mirror. He thought that this time he would be able to cure his sister, but he had to resume his cultivation or he would have to look for a cultivator. Little sister needs to wait a little. Her brother will soon help her get back on her feet, and he will find their mother. The next morning, Chu Yun was engaged in meditation. A blue glow emanated from the guy. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. Chu Yun's friend came into the room with the words that he was so young. Is it possible to sit at home alone without a girl? They should go to the bar. Chu Yun asked him to slow down a bit. The guy put on a t-shirt. His friend went on to say that he and his friends were going to meet at a bar. He will introduce Chu Yun to everyone. There are different drinks there. Maybe it will help to relax. Chu Yun and his friend came to the bar. His friend introduced Chu Yun in front of brother Lai, who was from the younger generation of the Lai Zai Chen family. Chu Yun looked at Lai and the girl who was sitting next to him. He thought that these young people were so dressed up. It's immediately obvious, from rich families. Maybe Jiang Fan tried to join their party, but so far he is not very successful. The girl told Jiang Fan not to bring such people to the party next time. Jiang Fan looked awkwardly at Sister Wu. Chu Yun stared sternly at these people. Wu crossed her legs and said that poor people should know their place. Maybe he sees someone here who doesn't look like a million. Even Jian Fan, if it wasn't for his cousin, would have started to communicate with him. Jiang Fan began to apologize to Sister Wu. Chu Yun took a glass with a drink and said that she was Wu Jin. How much does it cost? According to the girl. Wu Jin screamed, how dare he say that to her? Why told Jiang Fan not to think they didn't appreciate him. The guy who offended Wu should get down on his knees and beg for forgiveness, otherwise he will hit him. Jiang Fan started waving his arms and saying that it was not worth doing anything. Chu Yun came here for the first time, he doesn't understand. Jiang Fan turned to Chu Yun and angrily told him to apologize quickly. Chu Yun saw Wang Lai. But did she work here? Some man took the girl by the hand and started telling her that a young lady works at such a young age. It's amazing. She doesn't want to spend the evening with him and his brother. He will give her a special envelope. It will be enough to not go to work for a long time. Wang Lai pulled her hand out of the man's grasp and said with fear that she was sorry, but she was busy. She'll go first. The bald man said that there was no business. He would tell the manager that she was having fun with the boss today. She will definitely like it. Wang Lai nervously said that she was apologizing again, but she was busy right now. The girl thought that if she hadn't tried for her family, none of this would have happened, and these people wouldn't have bothered her. Men began to surround her. The bald man told her to come here and please her dear supervisor. Wang Lai screamed that she was asking to stop. Otherwise, she'll call security. Her boss tried to touch her with the words that it was not worth it. No one will interfere with them. Chu Yun stood in front of the girl and said what this fat man was going to do. The fat man tried to hit Chu Yun, but the guy poured his drink right in the face of this nasty man. The man took off his glasses and shouted that this guy was playing with fire. This time, the men surrounded Chu Yun. The bald man said that Boss Jin would beat him up well, and then he would get out of here. If he doesn't get out, then don't blame him for the broken leg. Chu Yun asked why they thought they would succeed. The guy thought angrily how they dared to climb up to his student right in front of his eyes. Life is definitely not cheap for them. The bald man shouted mockingly that at least he knew who was in front of him. His brother's name is Fan Huang. Wang Lai thought in horror that it was Boss Fan Huang's brother. The girl grabbed the teacher by the t-shirt and said that he had better leave, she would deal with it. Chu Yun started shouting at the girl that she couldn't figure it out. She should just stand behind him and wait. Otherwise, he will tell her parents about what happened. Wang Lai started crying out of fear. Jiang Fan wondered what he was doing. Jiang Fan bowed to Lai and asked if he could help. His brother Chu Yun came here for the first time. He doesn't know what he's doing. He has to talk to him. Li replied with a grin that no, he wouldn't. His friend angered people who should not be angered, especially Boss Huan. Even his father will find it difficult to negotiate with him. Let it be as it is. Wu Jin told Jiang Fan not to help him. He deserved it. He'll sit down and just enjoy the show. Jiang Fan didn't want to do that and went to Chu Yun. The guy told Chu Yun to apologize quickly. Jiang Fan turned to the bad men and said with a smile that his brother didn't understand anything at all. What was, there is no need to deal with it. There was a big misunderstanding. The fat man tried to hit Jiang Fan. He was shouting how dare this guy talk to him. Jiang Fan closed his eyes and thought that for now, blows would be able to solve problems. Let it be so. Chu Yun grabbed the fat man's hand and said that he seemed to enjoy making fun of people. The fat man, who didn't even wipe his face from Chu Yun's drink, asked him what he was doing. Chu Yun began to wring the fat man's fingers. He screamed in pain. Everyone was looking at Chu Yun and this scene in shock. The bald man shouted that he was giving them 3 seconds to leave. Otherwise, he will break his arm and legs. Lai said it was Zhao's boss. He had heard that he was out of town. He didn't think that the boss had already returned. Wu Jin blushed and said that this man is a hero. I would like to marry him. Jiang Fan put his hand on Chu Yun's shoulder and told him to leave Boss Zhao. Chu Yun angrily replied that Jian Fan and Wang Lai stood behind him. He'll figure it out. Chu Yun continued to hold the fat man's hand. He told him that if he tried to do it again, then let him be ready for his revenge. Chu Yun once again began to twist the fingers of the fat man, who screamed from the renewed pain. Chu Yun told the bald man that his friend was pissing him off. If he apologizes, they will forget about this incident, but if not, then his 10 fingers won't be enough to pay. The bald man asked with a grin who he should apologize to. Chu Yun said it was fine. Li said that this man is really unimaginably cruel. You can't just turn a blind eye to it. Moreover, if he has no connections, then tomorrow he will see the sky only through the bars. The fat man was crying and saying that Chu Yun was a demon. Wang Lai's boss came and yelled at her to tell her boyfriend to let him go, and if not, then she has no salary this month. Chu Yun told this guy that while his student was being laughed at, he did not show up, and then he quickly appeared. The guy wanted to say something, but Chu Yun hit him with such force that he flew into the wall. The fat man begged Chu-yun to let him go. Chu-yun told the bald man that Boss Kyan was already begging for forgiveness. He doesn't want to admit his mistake yet. He was told that he had not heard such words for a long time. The one who told him this the last time, and that he was allowed to feed the fish. Boss Zhao ordered his staff to capture Chu-yun. Wang Lai closed her eyes in fear and thought that this was the end. Chu-yun easily fought off the men who attacked him. The bald man held the phone near his ear and told Chu-yun that he would not be well. Boss Huang is already arriving. Let's see how he handles the boss. Boss Huang's men entered the room, shouting for everyone to disperse and not block the passage. The bald man happily called Alan. Some guy said that he was one of Mr. Huang's main bodyguards. Li said that the daredevil had come to an end. Wu Jin replied that now this guy would beg for mercy. Alan walked up to Chu-yun and took off his glasses. He looked closely and bowed, shouting that he was glad to see the teacher. All of Boss Huang's people bowed and greeted Chu-yun. Li said in surprise that some kind of devilry. Wu Jin said that Alan bowed to this guy. Chu-yun asked with an angry face that they were looking for trouble again. Alan said with fear that no, they were for a completely different reason. Alan began to say more confidently that unfortunately, their boss is in Jiangdong now, so he asked him to invite the teacher to their meeting. It will take place tomorrow. Chu-yun replied that it was clear. He thought that when it comes to benefits, you forget who is an enemy and who is a friend. The connections with Fang Huang would be useful to him. A bald man approached Alan and asked what was going on. Alan looked at the defeated people and asked what Jin ran into the teacher. The bald man tried to justify himself, but Alan hit him with the words that he apologized immediately. The bald man bowed to Chu-yun and shouted that he was asking for forgiveness. He didn't know that he was such a respected person. Spare him, otherwise the boss will punish him. Chu-yun put Wang Lai in front of him and said that there was no need to apologize to him. He should apologize to his student. The girl awkwardly said that it was not necessary, everything was fine. Alan told Chu-yun that this was wrong. She can't just forgive him. Chu-yun looked at the bald man who was almost crying. Chu-yun replied to Alan that he knew this man. He will forget about what happened, but if Alan is dissatisfied with something, let him turn to him. Alan nervously said no, they wouldn't dare. Chu-yun and his student started to leave the bar. The guy shouted for Alan to tell his boss that he would come tomorrow after work. One man said it was unbelievable. Even Mr. Lan honors him. Who is he? The girl replied that she thought he was just a little calf, who knew that he would turn out to be a real dragon. Boss Zhao is still shaking. Chu-yun and Wang Lai went outside. It was already night. The guy told his student that now she can explain everything. Wang Lai straightened her hair and awkwardly said that in fact, she was not enthusiastic about this job, but his father's company had recently gone bankrupt. She is afraid that they will be left without money, so she decided to save up a little. Chu-yun looked at the girl and said that he understood, but she could not work in such a place. She is still a schoolgirl. Wang Lai awkwardly said that there was no need to worry. She won't be coming back to this place anymore. The girl asked with great interest that the teacher was a superhero. He was able to write Tao Ta Tin in the opposite direction. He even managed to defeat those people and make them apologize. Chu-yun replied with a charming smile that he was actually a young master who came from a distant country. The bad guys know who he is, that's why they're afraid. The girl looked carefully at her teacher and said that he was lying. Chu-yun looked at the time on his phone and said it was midnight. She lives in a school dormitory. Chu-yun and Wang Lai headed towards the dorm. The girl said that the teacher from today is her idol. Chu-yun asked who else was in her idols. Wang Lai replied that Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs and many others. Chu-yun and Wang Lai reached their destination. Teacher Chu said that this is the school. Don't let her go back there again. Now the most important thing is to study hard. Wang Lai asked if he knew Yang Lin. Chu-yun asked in surprise why she suddenly asked about her. Chu-yun thought that Yang Ling was his ex-girlfriend when he was younger. She chose to break up with him. Wang Lai said with admiration that she would like to be as cool as Yang Lin. The girl sadly said that people say she has a terrible character. She has heard a lot of bad rumors. Wang Lai is definitely not capable of this. Chu-yun remembered the words of his ex-girlfriend. She said that such poor families all continue to give birth to offspring, because it annoys her so much. She doesn't want to live either. Chu-yun noticed a black light around Wang Ling. He wondered why Lin's fate was so dark. The girl noticed the teacher's gaze and asked why he was looking at her like that. Chu-yun sternly asked what she was saying. She was in trouble. Wang Lai clutched her head and sadly said that it was just trouble. In the morning, she confused the cleanser with toothpaste. I almost choked when I choked while eating. I was late for work. It would have been even worse if he hadn't been there. Chu-yun thoughtfully said yes. Her reputation will be clean until she commits a crime. Everything will be fine. The girl said with a smile that it was no wonder that Fei Fei called him Crow Chu. I wonder if he really predicts the future or not. While the girl was talking, the black aura did not disappear. Chu Yun thought intensely that this dark aura was a bad sign. She is threatened with death. Teacher Chu asked Wang Lai that her streak of failure began after the bankruptcy of her father's company. The girl thoughtfully said that it seems so, but those family problems have been going on for a year. Chu Yun took out a green amulet and handed it to the girl. Teacher Chu said that the amulet would save her from danger. Chu Yun thought that his aura would be able to protect her for a while. Perhaps someone has ruined their Feng Shui family ornament. It seems that he should visit them to check. The girl went to the dorm, but before that she thanked her teacher for her help. Chu Yun watched the girls go and thought that nothing in the world should disturb his family and his students. Whoever is behind this will deal with it. The next day at school, Chu Yun watched someone swear and thought what a commotion. The guard noticed Teacher Chu and said that someone was looking for him. A crowd of teenagers with colored hair were looking at Chu Yun. Chu Yun said he didn't know these color-haired punks. The guard took Chu Yun aside and said that they were hooligans from the Changping district. It's better not to anger some of them. He offended them in some way. Chu Yun looked at the hooligans and replied that with such an appearance they could act in horror films even without makeup. The guy with purple hair told his brother Kyan that they had just been called ugly. Kyan, who had green hair color, said that he had beaten their brother. What was he going to do about it? Chu Yun thought that he had not seen them at the club yesterday. It seems that Chen Junyu is behind all this. Chu Yun said loudly and firmly that yes, it was him. He saw his brother trying to touch a girl in the break room. Shouldn't he teach them a lesson? Every man did the same. Chu Yun thought, if he wants to play, he agrees. The students watching this shouted that it was right. It served him right. The hooligans were surprised to think that something had gone wrong with them. Wasn't this guy supposed to start shaking with fear and then try to deny it? The guy with purple hair screamed that he would admit that he had done it. Chu Yun asked him to hit him again. Kyan ordered his friends to unfurl the banner. The banner said that a teacher from Sun Jun's school paid a schoolgirl to go to a nightclub with him. Chu Yun angrily asked what he was trying to achieve. Kyan wrapped his hair around his finger and said they just wanted to get justice. If such a thing can happen at Sang Jun's school, then how can he be sure that his son is safe? Kyan held up the photos of Chu Yun and Wang Lai. He shouted that he had proof. Maybe he'll be interested to see. Miss Zhao stood in the crowd and shouted that she didn't think Teacher Chu was such a person. Chu Yun looked at the woman and thought that it was clear from her look that she was in cahoots with Chen Junyu to frame him. The office of the deputy director. One man shouted that such a teacher did not deserve to teach at the Sang Jun school. Qin Ran grabbed the bridge of her nose and replied that it was okay not to mention it. First of all, she will thoroughly understand what is happening and punish those who are behind it. In the staff room, Tan Yu looked out of the window at everything that was happening. She said she was sure that Teacher Chu was not capable of such a thing. And Wang Lin was definitely slandered. She was always so good at studying. Chen Junyu happily said that one should not judge only by one's impression. Outside, a person can be very pleasant, but inside, a real animal, it's better not to make friends with such. Teacher Dong said that Teacher Chen was right. Chu Yun has always acted in a way that teachers should not behave. Tan Yu asked Teacher Chen if he thought the taste of coffee was something reminiscent of the holy water he drank yesterday. After this statement, Chen choked. Teacher Tang left, and Chen Junyu thought that sooner or later he would make this woman apologize. Chu Yun is unlikely to continue working here after that. On the street, one of the mothers of the students said that really such a person could be a teacher of Sang Jun. One guy was crying and saying that Wang Lin is a real goddess. How could he do such a thing? Chu Yun crossed out one of the words on the poster and said that did someone else want to say something. Miss Zhao screamed that that wasn't the problem. He has to explain how a young schoolgirl got to that place. He broke the law. Miss Zhao thought with a sly smile that as long as this case progressed smoothly, she would be able to be with Chen Junyu. She will so easily trample on the one she hates with all her heart. Chu Yun addressed Zhao with the words that, firstly, he advises her to refrain from speaking out. Secondly, why does she need it? Thirdly, to stop bothering his eyes already. Miss Zhao blushed and began to scold the departing guy. Chu Yun introduced a lesson in his classroom. One of the students asked her classmates if they had heard rumors about Teacher Chu. Another classmate asked Wang Li what happened and how she ended up in that bar. Wang Lai awkwardly replied, when she is bored, she goes to clubs to have fun. That's where she met Teacher Chu. He scolded her and took her home. The girl thought that she did not need to tell them how it really was. A classmate asked Wang Lai what it was all about. She didn't think that Crow Chu managed to teach and go to clubs. Chu Yun threw the chalk on the desk and said that since everyone is so interested in this issue, we are writing an essay. The topic of the essay, discussion of the phenomenon of social problems. Submit essays tomorrow. Otherwise, he will inform their parents about the unfulfilled task. All the students shouted in frustration. Chu-yun was in the director's office. Kin-ran put a stack of sheets on the table and shouted that a lot of people were expressing their indignation. They asked him to stop teaching, what he is going to do in response. Chu-yun said that it was not such a serious problem to call him immediately. He will decide it tomorrow, you just need to believe him. With these words, Chu-yun left the office. Kin-ran stared at him in amazement, but then angrily shouted for him to come back right away. Chu-yun went outside and thought it was a small thing. We can sort it out tomorrow, but now it's better to go to Fang Huang. The guy came to the appointed place and the restaurant employee asked him if he had come to the meeting. The guy replied that he had arrived for a meeting with Fang Huang. Alan himself went out to meet Chu-yun. He said that the boss is in the conference room. He is seeing teacher Chu off. The girl stared at this scene in shock and thought that brother Alan had met this guy personally. Who was he? Fang Huang pointed to the sofa and told Chu-yun to sit down. Last time they didn't know anything about each other yet. Chu-yun sat down on the sofa, crossed his legs and said that he would like to know for what purpose he was invited here by boss Huang. A man named Wai Fu told Fang Huang that this was an invited person who was comparable to Wai Fu himself. This boy. He can't even handle Huang's people. Is he being bullied? Chu-yun looked at Wai Fu and thought that this person really has inner strength, although weak, but it must be at the level of Wu too. Chu-yun asked Fang Huang what was wrong. Fang Huang sat down in a chair and said that there was one problem. He needed to deal with the owners of one hotel about a piece of land. Previously they were local bandits, and now they are his rivals. The final negotiations will be conducted with the use of force. Each of them will send one person. The one whose fighter wins gets the land. He found out that they had invited a martial artist. Chu-yun spoke, so he invited two at once so as not to lose and choose the strongest of them. Fang Huang held up his finger and said with a smile that he was smart. He is helpless in this matter. This piece of land is too important. It can affect the development of his business in the next 10 years. He has to be careful. Mr. Wai is also a great man. Wai Fu and Chu-yun stared at each other. Fang Huang said that Chu-yun and Wai Fu can try and no matter if they lose or win, he will pay 1 million. Wai Fu looked at Fang Huang and asked what the man thought. 1 million is a decent price for his participation in this. Fang Huang showed 5 fingers and said that 1 million is certainly not worth the two of them. This is just the price of discussion. If they do take part, he will pay 5 million. Fang Huang, with an evil expression on his face, thought that if he got this land, its value would be measured in billions. If he spends a few million, he will not be left at a loss. Chu-yun jumped up from his seat and shouted that as many as 5 million. The guy thought that he had never seen such money in his whole life, because money has no value in the magical world. Wai Fu thought that Chu-yun was reacting this way because of a couple of million. He is sure that this boy is really a weakling. Chu-yun began to ponder that with this money, he would be able to ease his family's burden. Besides, there's something he needs to do. Wai Fu told Fang Huang that he wanted to find out if a person on the opposing side was capable of breaking a wooden table with his own palm. Fang Huang pointed at Alan and said that yes, they wanted to deal with him first, but this guy is too strong. If Alan had fought with him, then their fight would have been more like a fight between a lion cub and an adult lion. Wai Fu grabbed his beard and replied that it was an inner force. It was lucky that they didn't do anything. Alan would have been killed even if he was wearing first-class armor. Fang Huang asked what kind of inner strength it was. Fei Fu looked at Chu-yun and said that if he didn't know what inner strength was, then further discussion wouldn't make sense. Chu-yun looked at his drink and replied, what is called inner strength should be understood as the inner power of a martial art. Chu-yun raised his eyes and looked at everyone present. The guy went on to say that inner strength is a state of the human body that has surpassed the boundaries of the real. Of course, some people who have been practicing martial arts for years, although they do not cross that very border, but produce internal energy of the first level. Alan asked why everything was so mysterious. Chu-yun brought his drink to his lips and replied that the inner strength was just residual energy. She is the beginning of a different path behind her. Wai Fu told Chu-yun that he seems to know a little about it too, but his attitude towards it is too arrogant. Even dared to call the internal force residual energy. The man thought that he had been developing inner strength for months, and he dared to insult his efforts so much. Chu-yun replied that some people think that they have already conquered the top of the mountain, believe that they have conquered Everest and subdued the heavens. Wai Fu released his power and shouted that Chu-yun shouldn't be so arrogant. At his age, it won't even be possible to practice inner strength. If he is his old friend's disciple, he swears that he will punish Chu Yun slightly and he will not be able to practice martial arts anymore. Alan looked at Wai Fu and thought that this inner strength was amazing. Fang Huang was surprised to think that Wai Fu was a real expert. Chu Yun looked at Wai Fu with a grin and said that this method only works against ordinary people. It's better to take a step back and continue training to show off your strength. Fan Huang, with a little fear, asked Teacher Chu to be more careful in his statements. Wai Fu was furious and shouted that if it wasn't for Fang Huang, he would have killed him from the beginning, but now he forced him. Wai Fei tried to deliver a swift blow to Chu Yun, but the guy first hit the man on his arm and continued to drink his drink. Wai Fu fell back onto the sofa he was sitting on earlier. Wai Fu stood up and took out some kind of amulet. The man said that it was a magical artifact. They'll see how he handles it. A dark purple aura in the shape of skulls began to burst out of the artifact. Fang Huang loudly asked what the frightening aura was. Fang Huang's worried people ran into the room. Chu Yun continued to sit on the sofa and said without a drop of fear that this garbage is also called a weapon. Too weak. Wai Fu directed the artifact's power at Chu Yun and shouted for him to go to hell. Feng Huang shouted for Teacher Chu to be careful. Chu Yun continued to sit on the sofa and drink his drink. The power of the artifact did not affect him. Wai Fu wondered how Chu Yun managed it. Chu Yun threw the tea out of the glass right at Wai Feng. The tea turned into small, sharp needles that pierced into the painting that was behind Wai Fu. Wai Fu looked at his hands and the painting in surprise. He couldn't believe it was ordinary tea. Wai Fu stared at Chu Yun in horror and said that he was not Wu Tu's level. He had reached the Wuxi level. Chu Yun smiled smugly. Alan asked in surprise that this was the real power of Master Chu. Chu Yun asked me to give him the shard, so he called the magical artifact Wai Fu. Chu Yun snatched the artifact from Wai Fu's hands with his power. Chu Yun asked with a smile that they had some problems. Wai Fu bowed slightly and replied loudly that he was asking the master for forgiveness. He would like to give this item to him. Chu Yun looked at the magic artifact and thought that this piece of copper had been stored together with dense yin energy for a long time. Although it is not a real weapon, but it is completely imbued with yin and even the ability to create illusions. Chu Yun told Wai Fu that he used it to fight him. Of course, if he wants to deal with it again, he will be on the alert. The guy put the artifact in his pocket and thought that for normal people this artifact can be dangerous. Its pure aura will help in its cultivation. Wai Fu started waving his arms and saying that if he was no longer needed, but he would go first. The man thought with fear that even his master was not his rival. Fang Huang watched Wai Fu leave and thought that just recently his influence was so strong. But even Wai Fu is frightened by the terrifying power of Teacher Chu. He's a great man. In fact, he always thought he was overestimating his competitors, but now he thinks it's not even enough. Chu Yun picked up his empty glass and told Fang Huang that he had run out of tea. Fang Huang fussed and shouted for more tea to be brought quickly, although he will bring tea to the teacher himself. Fang Huang was pouring a new batch of tea to Chu Yun. The guy turned to Boss Huan with the words that it was not necessary to be so courteous with him. He won't eat anyone. Now he's working for him. He won't do anything like the karaoke anymore. Fang Huang replied with a nervous smile. How could he do that? Chu Yun picked up a cup filled with tea and said that he would take care of his problem. Now it remains to decide about the time. He's busy this weekend. He'll have to wait until next weekend. Chu Yun was drinking tea and thought he should visit Wang Ling to see what was wrong there. After all, it's not a joke. Fang Huang replied that there was no need to worry. It would wait another week. Besides, it's lucky for him to even be acquainted with Teacher Chu. Chu Yun awkwardly said that there was no need to say that. His words give the impression that he is a bandit. Just let him think that he is an ordinary teacher, like his friend. Fang Huang saluted and shouted that he would do everything as Teacher Chu said. Chu Yun said he wanted to know something. Fang Huang replied that he only needed to be told. He would do whatever was asked. Chu Yun folded his hands and told Fang Huang that he would like Boss Huang to find someone. Fang Huang happily said that he would easily find anyone who Teacher Chu wants to find. Chu Yun replied that his mother